Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Planning of Melton Borough Council. I'm Councillor James Mason, Vice Chair of Planning, and I'll be chairing the meeting tonight in the absence of our Chair, Councillor Thwaites. Before we start the meeting, I would just like to point out some housekeeping rules for our own safety and everyone else's safety. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park, nearest the car park entrance. Thank you. Officers will be on hand to assist anyone that needs assistance to evacuate the building. Would you please put your phones to silent during the meeting? I thank you very much for that. And the meeting will be live streamed on YouTube this evening and may be looked at in previous in subsequent episodes. Thank you. Members speaking, would you please raise your hand if you wish to speak and speak directly into the microphone in front of you. Remember to turn it off, please. There's nobody more guilty of that than me. When you're finished, thank you. And again, tonight, members voting will be by a show of hands. No, there's no electronic voting. For the purpose of the meeting, I would like to introduce those present. The members here this evening are, to my right, Councillor Adcock, Jim Adcock, Councillor Pip Alnett, Councillor Ian Atherton, Councillor Rowan Brown, Councillor Marilyn Gordon. To my left, Councillor Richard Sharp, who's substituting for Councillor Thwaites, Sharon Butcher, who's substitute for Councillor Higgins, Councillor Lane Holmes, and Councillor Don Pritchett. On hand, we have a team of officers to assist us during the meeting. To my left, Legal Services Manager Tom Pickwell. To my right, Planning Development Manager Louise Parker, Director for Place and Prosperity Lydia Roosling, Planning Officer Max Sanders, Planning Development Team Leader Chaya Pancholi, and Planning Development Team Leader Mark Ketley. We also have most important people in the room, the Democratic Services team present assisting with technology and taking the minutes, Helen Ainge and Sarah Evans. Having got through that, I would now like to get into the meeting proper, and I have apologies for absence for Councillors Glancy, Higgins and Thwaites. Are there any more apologies for absence we can take, or is that it? Okay. Richard Sharp is as I say, substitute for Councillor Thwaites, and Councillor Sharon Butcher is substitute for Councillor Higgins. To turn to the minutes of the last meeting, has anyone got any matters arising or any comments on the minutes of the last meeting they'd like to raise, please? If not, can I have a proposer for the minutes? Councillor, want to say something? Non, sorry. Well,
I'll propose.
Well, just fight amongst yourselves, and that'd be fine. Thank you. Councillor Holmes, and seconded by Councillor Pritchett. Have we got that? Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. On that proposal and seconder, can I have a show of hands for propose the minutes, please? That's what. Yeah. I wasn't here, so I'll abstain. Richard Sharp, Councillor Sharp will abstain, and Councillor Butcher will abstain. So that's 3 abstentions. Again, thank you. So the result is that the minutes are agreed. Thank you very much. Third, declaration of interest. Can I ask members to declare any interest as appropriate in respect of items to be considered at this meeting? Councillor Adcock.
Yes, Chair. I am actually the ward councillor, one of the ward councillors for Sysonby, so I will simply withdraw when that matter is raised.
Thank you, Councillor Adcock. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I own land on the other side, just away from the development on the Sysonby farm, I feel that I would be better I have had advice from Tom Pickwell to withdraw and leave the meeting at that time. Thank you.
I'm happy that's recorded. Sorry, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Chair. Just for transparency on the advice of the solicitor, I just want to make it clear that one of the employees of Morris Homes is the wife of an employee of mine and a friend of mine, but we've not discussed the matter, or but I just want to be absolutely clear because I don't want that coming up later on. Okay.
Brown, thank you very much. Can we conclude that? Thank you. Thank you very much. And we've got that all recorded. Thank you very much. Turn now to the schedule of applications. The first application is application 24/01038 for land at Stygate Lane, Pickwell. It is the solar farm application. These are very emotive applications. I know, I've sat through them. And let's hope that during the debate, I would like to believe that we can generate a lot more light than heat. So if we could just bear that in mind, I'd be very much obliged. Thank you. So, but can I ask the planning officer, Max Sanders, to present the application? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. As you've mentioned, the application is for full planning permission for a ground-mounted photovoltaic solar farm with a capacity of up to 49.99 megawatts, together with the associated equipment, infrastructure, and ancillary works. And you can see the site location plan there on the left. The red lines denote the application site. You can also see some blue lines which denote adjacent land that's in the same ownership. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of what modern solar farms look like, this is one that I photographed recently, not too far from here at Ellistown. You can see on the left that grass grows under and between the arrays of solar panels. And you can also see the typical type of deer fence that is normally found around a solar farm. And indeed, that's the type of fencing that is proposed in this application that we're considering. Deer fencing is intended to not obstruct views. You can see it's a wire mesh fence that birds and small animals can get through. It doesn't obstruct views, and it's between timber posts. It's 2 meters high. What you can't see in the photograph is that at certain intervals along the bottom of deer fencing, there are apertures that small mammals such as foxes, badgers, hedgehogs, and so on can get through, so that they're not impeded from passing through the site. On the right photograph, you can see the type of internal track that is often to be found. They tend to skirt around the perimeters of fields, following the edges of the hedgerows, and indeed there are some access tracks proposed similar to this one in the application that we're considering. The access tracks are permeable crushed aggregate. They're not tarmac or concrete. They're the type of tracks that you would expect to find in a farm. And you can see there the type of container that contains some of the associated equipment. Next slide, please. And still at Ellistown, I took these photographs recently just to demonstrate the kind of screening that can be provided by hedges and trees around solar farms. This is the same photograph taken twice. The one on the left I took standing on the ground. The one on the right I took standing on the top of a raised embankment so that I could see over the hedge. So you can see in that right photograph where I was standing on a raised embankment, you can see the tops of solar arrays. But when I was standing at ground level, you can see that the hedging there provided an effective screen to conceal the solar arrays behind. Next slide, please. Now, this is one of the 3 solar farms that we currently have in our borough. This is the Asfordby solar farm. And again, you can. This is a somewhat older solar farm. The arrays there are about 2 meters tall, whereas the ones that are proposed this evening are 3 meters tall. But you can see how the ground has not been reprofiled, despite it being on a hillside. The legs are simply driven straight down into the ground. There's no concrete, no foundations, so that the grass can grow under and between the arrays. And you can also see the top right photograph, a typical access track within the solar farm. Again, permeable aggregate, crushed aggregate. Thank you. Next slide, please. This is one of the other existing solar farms within the borough. This one's at 6 Hills. Again, you can see this is a more modern one. Again, you can see the type of deer fencing that's proposed. In the right photograph, you can see a CCTV camera. Those are angled to point along the perimeter fence in case of intruders trying to climb over the fence. They're monitored remotely because, of course, solar farms are not staffed on the ground. They are monitored from remote centres. Next slide, please. And again, at 6 Hills, these are the types of containers in which you would typically see associated equipment, inverters, and so on. Thank you. The two ovals that you see on this plan towards the top right are approximately showing where the two parcels of the proposed development would be. In green, you can see the route of the A606 main road. So the oval to the right of that is in Rutland. That's the smaller parcel. And the oval to the left or below the A606 is the larger parcel, which would be the Melton parcel. And marked in black, you can see the boundary between Melton and Leicestershire on the left, Rutland on the right. Also worth noticing is the brown shape, which is the nearest scheduled monument. That's an ancient hill fort, and that's the highest hill nearby. That's just over 3 kilometers away to the west. And you can see Pickwell as well, the village, and the green dotted line around that shows that that's a conservation area. Thank you. So again, on this plan, you can see the red line that denotes the application site, the blue lines, which are adjacent land in the same ownership, and the black line, which is approximately the line of the boundary between Melton and Leicestershire to the left, Rutland to the right. Worth noticing here is within the Melton site, there is a more or less a square shape, which is excluded from the application site. That would not be taken over by the solar farm company. That would be retained in use by the farmers who own the land. That is a site on which there was an application last year by the landowners to erect some poultry buildings, and we'll see those in a moment. When this application for the solar farm was submitted in November, although planning permission had been refused last year for those proposed poultry sheds, there was a live appeal at the time against that refusal, but that has since been dismissed by a planning appeal inspector. Next slide, please. So again, with the blue arrow, you can see that excluded square of land superimposed on an aerial photograph. The blue arrows on the right are excluded land, which is in Rutland. The lower arrow on the right is more or less pointing to some archaeological remains for a Roman villa, which I'll mention again later. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the poultry farm buildings. It was a planning application last year that was refused in June and was subsequently dismissed at appeal. A committee member was asking me about these buildings the other day, so I thought I'd show you these slides. So these show you the kind of buildings that were proposed. There were 4 large modern agricultural buildings and some associated tanks that would have gone with them, and you can see the size of them there. And you can also see on the plan that there would have been some hard standing for the associated service yards and a new access road to connect to Stygate Lane and an attenuation lagoon or pond. Next slide, please. And still on the poultry farm buildings, you can see in green there that proposal would have involved some reprofiling of the land, some cut and fill, cutting away the ground, building up the ground to create a level surface, whereas the solar farm that's proposed this evening wouldn't involve any reprofiling of the land. And the reason for refusal, as you can see there, related to landscape harm. And the appeal inspector who dismissed that appeal was also of the opinion that that would have been harmful to the landscape and to views experienced by users of the public right-of-way. Next slide, please. Agricultural land is classified on a scale of, it's a scale of 1 to 5, but there are actually 6 points on it because grade 3 is subdivided into 3A and 3B subgrades. And this is a system that's set out by the government, by DEFRA. Grades 1, 2, and 3A are considered to be what's called best and most versatile agricultural land. 1 is excellent, 2 is very good, and there is no land within the site that's 1 or 2. 3A is good quality land, and you can see that marked in dark green on that plan. It's about 5% of the area. The other grades that are not best and most versatile are 3B, and you can see that most of the site is 3B. 4 and 5. 4 is poor, 5 is very poor. There's none of that on the site. So the site is mostly 3B, which is moderate quality, and a portion of it, all of which is within the Melton site, marked in dark green, is 3A, which is good quality land. And so the 3A land is 5% of the total area, including the Rutland area, or 5.7 if we just consider the Melton area. Next slide, please. This quote is from a very recent appeal decision this month, actually, 13th of August, at a site covered by North Castilian District Council. And this case was really the reverse situation of what we have on our side, because in this case, 96% of the land was best and most versatile. Actually, all of it was best and most versatile. 96% was subgrade 3A, 3.9% was grade 2, which is even better. So it was all best and most versatile land. But even in that case, the appeal inspector who allowed the appeal wrote that I find that the use of best and most versatile agricultural land in this case is justified. This is because the proposal would not result in the loss of best and most versatile agricultural land. He meant permanently, because it's a temporary 40-year permission. Agricultural activities would still be able to take place on the land. He was referring to grazing by sheep, which is also proposed in this case. And at the end of the operational life of the solar farm in 40 years, the land can be returned to its former full-time use as arable farming land. So in that case, the appeal was allowed, even though all of that site was best and most versatile agricultural land. Next, please. So the proposal is to make dual use of the land, not only for the generation of renewable energy, solar energy, but also grazing, most likely sheep, although poultry are also a possible type of livestock. Next, please. And you can see here that because the grass grows between and underneath the panels, sheep can graze there, and indeed they can shelter from the heat and the sun and the rain because of the shelter that the solar panels provide. Thank you. So this is a 3D illustration which gives you a good idea of the proposed layout. Up in the right corner you can see the parcel that would be in Rutland, but the main part is in Melton, and you can see there the square field that's been excluded from the site. Thank you. This is the landscape plan. On this, you can see marked in red some of the, well, all of the permissive footpaths that are proposed, which would connect to the existing public right-of-way, which is shown as a dotted purple line. You can also see the two wildflower meadows that are proposed on the Melton side, and you can see the excluded land there. Down at the bottom in khaki, you can see the belt of trees that grows along the banks of the brook in the bottom of the valley, and you can see a white strip that separates the site from that belt of trees. That's because the red line that denotes the edge of the site would not go all the way to the banks of the brook. There'd be a 20-meter strip of grass retained as a buffer in between. Thank you. On the right, you can see the Rutland parcel. Now, there is an existing row of pylons and overhead power lines that crosses the Rutland parcel. And that's the reason why the proposal is to put the substation and the point of connection there to connect to those existing power lines. So there would be a substation built there on the Rutland site, but not in the Melton site. You can see marked in yellow up on the Rutland parcel a wildflower meadow. That's one of three next to an existing pond. And over on the left, you can see two other dark yellow shapes, which are two more wildflower meadows that are proposed on the Melton site. And in pale yellow, the community garden area. Thank you. And again, you can see in green there the proposed wildflower meadows. Those would both be, the two that are in the Melton site would both be opposite farmhouses, Marylands Farm and Windy Ridge Farm, and they would serve to set the solar arrays further back away from those farmhouses. Thank you. This is up on the Rutland site. This is where the point of connection and the substation would be, and you can see the existing overhead power cables crossing the site there. Thank you. The site is, the Melton part of the site is within Somerby Parish, and it's covered by the Somerby Parish Neighbourhood Plan, which includes policy ENV8, local landscape character areas. And you can see that shown in the image on the right there. The blue circle is roughly where the site would be, and you can see that's within the area that's denoted as the back slope, which is one of the three landscape character areas covered by that policy. Thank you. Also in the neighbourhood plan is policy ENV9, important views. And those important views are marked on the plan there. Again, the blue circle is roughly where the site is. And you can see that none of the important views that are denoted by policy ENV9, none of those views are into or across the application site. Thank you. One of the documents that was submitted with the application was the Landscape and Visual Impact Assessment, the LVIA, which included this plan, which shows the zone of theoretical visibility. Marked in khaki here, you can see areas from which it might be possible for people to see parts of the site. It's approximately 2 kilometers across, but it varies because, of course, it's not a perfect circle. It depends on the topography. But those are the areas from which it might be possible to see parts of the site. The council have had this, well, they've had the landscape and visual impact assessment document generally reviewed, including this plan, by an independent landscape consultant who has accepted that this is credible. Thank you. This plan shows the public rights of way, and again, those two ovals show approximately the two parcels of the site. There are a network of public rights of way in the area, one of which passes through the Melton site. That's public right of way D68. Thank you. Last winter, there were some hedge plants put into the site and also some new trees, as you can see here. Now, this is a fairly modest planting exercise. A lot more planting than this is proposed by the application and would be required by a condition. But as you can see, some of it's already gone in and had a head start. I drove down Stygate Lane yesterday. I took these photographs back in the winter, as you can see. The hedge along Stygate Lane is well established now, and some of the trees seem to be doing well despite the heat wave. Thank you. So the proposed ecological enhancements are that there would be, because of the planting of new hedges, new trees and so on, a biodiversity net gain of 50%, just over 50% for habitat units, just over 23% for hedgerow units. New hedges would be planted, especially along the route of the public right-of-way. New trees would be planted. There would be a community orchard. I'll show you in a moment where that would be, with a garden and a foraging area. There would be 3 wildflower meadows included within the site, 2 in Melton, 1 in Rutland. Sheep, most likely sheep, would be grazed on the site. It might be poultry. Beehives we would expect to see included in the wildflower meadows, and there's a condition relating to that at the end of the report. And there'll be bird boxes, bat boxes, log piles for invertebrates and small creatures. A councillor asked me recently for some details about the type of grass that would be planted, and actually there would be 4 types planted on different parts of the site. There'd be a wildflower meadow mix in those 3 wildflower meadow areas. Around the perimeters of the solar arrays, the proposal is to use the species-rich type of grass. There'd be a grazing mix among the solar arrays for the sheep to make use of. And for people using the garden area, there'd be amenity grass. Thank you. So in the left image, you can see that triangular green area where the community garden and orchard would be, and you can see it in more detail in the other image there. You can see marked in a dotted purple line the route of the public right-of-way, and you can see the orchard, the community orchard that would be planted alongside it, and the community garden area as well. And there's also foraging all along the route of the public right-of-way, where there would be species such as hazelnuts, berries, and so on. Thank you. In terms of residential neighbours, there are a few. Circled in red on the A606 is Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is a row of 3 terraced houses plus 1 detached house. Circled in pale blue, you can see Northfield Farm. That's a farm, and it has a farm shop. That's on the opposite side of the valley from the application site. Circled in yellow is Belmont Farm. That's a modern farm. It was previously called Stygate Farm. I believe it contains a flat for a staff member. In mauve is Melton Meat, also known as Baytree Farm. And in the light green, you can see set back down a long driveway off Stygate Lane, Brocker Farm. In purple is Maryland's Farm, and in dark red or pink, you can see Windy Ridge Farm. Thank you. So these are some images along Stygate Lane. You can see that most of Stygate Lane is flanked on both sides by mature hedges, which are about 2 meters tall. I took these photographs in the winter, but even in the winter, as you can see, when the hedge is not in leaf, it provides effective screening. The proposal is that that hedge on the side of the lane that's adjacent to the solar farm would be grown taller than it is now, to 3 meters. And although most of Stygate Lane has hedges down both sides, the end that's closer to the wind turbine and Belmont Farm didn't until recently have a hedge. But as I showed you earlier, that was planted earlier this year in the winter. On the top right, you can see one of the tall structures at Belmont Farm. That's an anaerobic digester. Bottom left, you can see the farmhouse of Maryland's Farm. Bottom right, you can see the farmhouse of Windy Ridge Farm. Next, please. So as you can see here in pale yellow, those two farmhouses, Maryland's Farm and Windy Ridge Farm, would both have opposite them wildflower meadows, so that the solar panels would be set further back where they are opposite those farmhouses, with new, in addition to the existing hedges along the lane, new hedges around those wildflower meadows as well. Thank you. These are cross sections of the proposed solar arrays, which will be up to 3 meters tall. And you can see that underground, the legs would be simply driven down into the ground. There's no foundations, no concrete. And they would be driven down at least 80 centimeters and typically between 1 and 2 meters underground to secure them. Thank you. The battery stores and the inverters would both be in containers similar to shipping containers, approximately 3 meters tall, which you can see here. They would simply be craned into the site. They're not permanent buildings, and they can be removed, simply craned out at the end of the 40-year period. Thank you. And in this case, the proposal is to group a battery store container and some inverter containers together in clusters, and there would be 13 of those clusters distributed around the site, 11 on the Melton part of the site, 2 on the Rutland part of the site. This is different to the approach that's sometimes taken or often taken elsewhere, where all the battery stores are together in one compound. In this case, that's not the proposal. They would be dispersed around the site. Thank you. We saw at the beginning a photograph of a typical deer fence, 2 meters tall, and this is the drawing. And at the top there, you can see a small mammal aperture at the bottom of the fence there. Thank you. Some listed buildings in Wissendine. These two are particularly notable because they're tall buildings and they're on the crest of a hill. And these two buildings, St Andrew's Church, its tower in particular, and the Wissendine Windmill, they're both listed buildings. They can be glimpsed in the distance from some parts of the site. Thank you. And these are just some typical views of the site taken from within the site. You can see one of the newly planted trees there on the left. Thank you. This is looking from within the site across the valley towards Northfield Farm on the other side of the valley. And you can see some tall trees growing in the bottom of the valley. Those are trees that are growing along the banks of the brook. And you can see the brook itself there in the right photograph. The brook is just outside the red line that denotes the application site. Thank you. So here you can see the existing wind turbine on Stygate Lane, and you can also see some photographs that I took a few months ago of the newly planted section of hedge along Stygate Lane. Thank you. Now the site is regarded as being potentially of archaeological interest, the reason being that, as you can see with the red arrow, an adjacent field outside the red line is known to have the remains of a Roman villa beneath it. So for that reason, we've been mindful that we do need to be cautious about the potential for archaeological finds on the site. So we have insisted, following advice from the County Council's archaeologists, that the site be thoroughly investigated by archaeologists. And you can see here that most of the site was, in the spring, thoroughly investigated by trenching in positions that had been agreed by the County Council's senior archaeologist. The green arrow points to that square of land that's excluded from the site. The purple arrow points to a corner of the site that was not trenched in the spring, the reason being bad weather. Rain was flooding the trenches. So it's been agreed with the county archaeologist that that corner of the site still needs to be trenched before that land can be developed, but that can be secured by a condition. Thank you. Now, the policy within the adopted Melton Local Plan that's directly relevant to solar farm proposals is policy EN10, energy generation from renewable and low carbon sources. The Melton Local Plan, of course, as we know, is part of the development plan. It was adopted in 2018, which means it's more than 5 years old. When it was 5 years old in 2023, a review was carried out, which found that policy EN10 should be revised to include reference to solar energy generation, among other issues. That's because in 2018, solar energy was less of an issue than it is now. It's become more common to receive applications for solar farms than it was in 2018. Nevertheless, policy EN10 as it stands remains valid as far as it's consistent with the National Planning Policy Framework. A revised version of policy EN10 has been published in draft form for consultation. That currently carries only limited weight because it's not been adopted. But it's worth noting that the approach that we're taking as a council in regarding policy EN10 are still valid and still an appropriate policy to assess the application under, which of course is why my committee report has followed the structure of policy EN10. This is also the approach that's been taken very recently by an appeal inspector and indeed by the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, who both assessed an appeal very recently at Muston Lane near Belvoir Castle. That was an appeal that was called in by the Secretary of State, and both the Secretary of State and the appeal inspector regarded policy EN10 as being valid and appropriate for a basis of decision making. Thank you. So let's just remind ourselves of what the National Planning Policy Framework says about what local planning authorities should bear in mind when they're assessing applications such as this. It says, when determining planning applications for all forms of renewable and low carbon energy developments and their associated infrastructure, local planning authorities should not require applicants to demonstrate the overall need for renewable or low carbon energy, and we should give significant weight to the benefits associated with renewable and low carbon energy generation and the proposal's contribution to a net zero future. And of course, as we know, achieving a net zero carbon future is not just a policy objective, but a legal requirement nationally by 2050. Next, please. So this evening, members will need to consider the various harms. There will be some harm caused by the development, and whether those are outweighed or not by the various benefits. So in terms of the harms, there will certainly be some harm caused to the landscape, localized harm as we saw when we saw the slide of the zone of theoretical visibility, approximately 2 kilometers across. And that landscape harm is considered by officers to be something that should carry substantial negative weight when we are assessing the pros versus the cons. There will also be harm to views, which is a somewhat separate issue to landscape harm, and in particular harm to views from public rights of way, and most especially, of course, the public right of way D68 that passes through the site, because of course anybody walking through the site on that public footpath, their views will certainly be changed compared to what they are now. And that again carries, in the view of officers, substantial negative weight in the balance. There will be some low-end, less than substantial harm to the significance of some heritage assets in terms of their settings, because it will be possible to view some heritage assets, such as the Tower of St Andrew's Church in the distance, the Wissendine Windmill in the distance, and so on, in the same views as some parts of the solar farm. But because it's less than substantial harm at the lower end, That's considered by officers to carry limited negative weight. It's true that the land, although it will be available for sheep farming or livestock farming, won't be available for arable farming for a period of, well, 40 years for the operation of the solar farm. But if we also considered the construction and the decommissioning, potentially approximately 42 years, that's considered to carry very limited weight because there will be still some agricultural uses continuing and because it's temporary. In terms of the loss of habitat for skylarks, most birds and other species of wildlife will benefit from the development because of the new planting of hedges and trees, which will provide them with habitat and foraging. But skylarks are an exception because they're ground nesting birds. There are skylarks over the site. I've heard them myself. And that's given neutral weighting because there would be a condition to require the provision of compensatory habitat for skylarks on adjacent land. So the skylarks would end up with the same amount of habitat that they have now, which is why their weighting there is neutral. Next slide, please. In terms of the benefits, the main one, of course, is the production of clean, renewable energy, 49.99 megawatts, which is considered to carry very substantial positive weight in the balance. And also separate from that is the contribution to national energy security, because, of course, that applies to any type of energy generation within the UK, even if it's not renewable energy. The fact that it's domestically produced means that much energy doesn't have to be imported from abroad. And that's considered to carry substantial positive weight. There'd be diversification of the rural economy because of the dual use for livestock farming as well as solar energy production. And that's considered to carry moderate weight, provide an additional income stream for the landowners, the farmers who own the land. Resting the soil beneath grass, soil which has been intensively farmed for many years to help it recover, that's considered to carry limited positive weight. The beekeeping that we'd expect to see on the wildflower meadows with beehives managed by local apiarists is considered to carry limited positive weight. A condition listed at the end of the report would require the submission of a local employment and training strategy to ensure that during the construction period, jobs and apprenticeships and training opportunities would be made available to local people. That's considered to carry moderate weight. It would be for a short period, less than a year, but of course it could potentially form the start of a new career in a burgeoning industry in renewable energy for local people. The leisure and fitness facilities, including a fitness course, a dog agility training course, 4.7 kilometers of new permissive footpaths for walkers to use, the parking spaces with the electric vehicle charging posts, which will be free for local people to use. Those are considered to carry moderate positive weight. The environmental enhancements, the planting of new hedges and trees, again, those would carry substantial weight because those would be well in excess, as we saw, of the minimum 10% requirement. The archaeological investigations, these are not only a benefit in terms of preventing harm, but will also help to improve and increase understanding of local history and archaeology, for which reason they carry moderate weight. Could be more, depending on what's discovered. And the proposed improvements to surface water drainage, those are considered to carry limited positive weight. There's no reason to think that any more rainwater would run off the site than does now, but actually the proposal is betterment. The proposal is to reduce the amount of rainwater that runs off the site into the brook in the bottom of the valley. Next slide, please. Something I wanted to bring to your attention is that since the committee report was published with the agenda, we have received some late objections. Some of them came in today and yesterday. Some of them raised 4 objections. Some of them raised points that are already raised by other people and summarised in the report. But there were some new points raised. Somebody mentioned that in Germany, garden fences are sometimes made with photovoltaic cells, and they suggested that perhaps this is an approach that could be used in Melton. Somebody mentioned that in France, it's now mandatory for large car parks to have canopies with solar panels, and they suggested that this is an alternative way that perhaps we should follow here of generating renewable energy as well. And an objector wrote that they believe that the council was wrong to have issued a negative decision in July last year in response to an environmental impact assessment screening opinion request. Now, perhaps I should just explain that. If you look at the section of the report where the planning history is summarised, you'll see that last year the developers, prior to submitting this application, wrote to the council to ask for our formal opinion as to whether we would expect to see an environmental statement included with the application under the terms of the environmental impact assessment regulations, which are national regulations. And the opinion that was issued by the council was that no, there's no requirement for that. Just to be clear about this, the regulations are called the Environmental Impact Assessment, EIA regulations. They refer to a type of document that's called an environmental statement. In certain circumstances, an environmental statement can be required with a planning application. And government guidance is that this really applies to very large major applications in the main, such as an application to build a new nuclear power station, a new motorway, a new airport, the type of developments that have the potential to cause very major environmental damage if they're not properly considered. And there are regulations that have to be taken account of when a council makes a decision as to whether an environmental statement is required. And the council took the view that none of those applied in this case. That's not to say that the environment isn't important, and of course it is, and several of the documents that were submitted with this application were documents dealing specifically with the environment and with ecological matters, but they weren't the type of environmental statement that's covered by the EIA regulations. Thank you. Just to mention some corrections that I've noticed before since the report went to press. At one point, we were considering having a pack of appendices with the report. We decided not to have the appendices because all of the documents that would have been in it are published on the council's website in any case. So there are no appendices, just to be clear, but I did forget to delete some references to them in those paragraphs. Apologies for that. Thank you. So the recommendation is that the council grant planning permission subject to the agreed conditions when confirmation has been received from Leicestershire County Council's Ecology team that satisfactory arrangements have been made for the payment of their monitoring fee. I should mention that less than 2 hours prior to this meeting starting, we did receive very late in the day some comments from Leicestershire County Council's Ecology team. They had already previously commented when they were originally consulted. We did reconsult them in July on some revisions that were submitted, and they have now, just this evening, sent us their comments. There's no change from their previous comments. They still have no objection, and they're still recommending the same conditions that they were previously recommending. The issue as regards the payment of their monitoring fee for the biodiversity net gain, that's something that can be agreed subsequently. That concludes the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Max. That's a very full presentation. Thank you very much. Very informative. Can I invite questions now? And I do stress the word questions. We have time for debate later on in the proceedings from members that would like to ask questions on the presentation and indeed the report. Councillor Ornett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Max, for a very full presentation. I've only got the one question because it's a bit of a new thing that appeared, and you referred to the the appeal decision recently regarding agricultural land, best and most valuable, isn't it? Now, it seems to me that appeal doesn't apply here, because most of our land in this particular case is not best and most valuable at all. So that particular reference is more for the future, because it seems to me to drive a coach and horses through any protection we may have for any agricultural land. Obviously, when we come on to debate it, Chair, we'll be talking about our perceptions around the need to retain farmland. But can I just understand that that particular appeal doesn't have any bearing on tonight's decision?
Thank you. Yes, it's an interesting point. The reason I included that quote, it's very recent, just a few weeks ago, not too far away from here. And the interesting thing about that is that although national policy in the National Planning Policy Framework says that generally speaking, solar farm developments should try to avoid best and most versatile agricultural land, which is grades 1, 2, and 3A. In that case, and in our case, only 5% of it is best and most versatile, the rest isn't. But in that case, all of it was best and most versatile agricultural land, which, as I say, national policy asks developers to steer away from. But nevertheless, even so, in that case, the appeal inspector decided that it was legitimate to allow the development on that land, which is interesting. Yes, in that case.
Are there any more questions? Councillor Atherton.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm that we're here to discuss a planning application for a solar farm of generating capacity up to 49.99 megawatts, because I don't think that was ever mentioned in the brief, and that the build period will take some 42 years to start, up to 7 years after any approval that we might give.
I think that's my perception, but I'll let Max answer that question. Thank you.
Yes, as I mentioned with the first slide, the proposal is a solar farm of generating up to 49.99 megawatts. As is explained in the report, currently there's a threshold of 50 megawatts above which it would be considered a nationally significant infrastructure project. That might change. In fact, it might double soon. We're waiting to receive confirmation from the government about that, but currently it's 50. Yes, that is the proposal, and in fact that is specifically mentioned in the description of the development that was on the application form, and it would be mentioned if planning permission is granted. That would be on the decision notice as well. So it wouldn't be possible for the developers to export more than that, because it wouldn't be in accordance with the planning permission. And yes, Councillor, you're right. The proposal is an operational period of 40 years. It's expected that constructing it would take 6 to 9 months, another 3 months, I think, for testing, and a similar period of up to a year for decommissioning at the end. So we're looking at a period of potentially 42 years. You raised the issue of 7 years for commencement. The standard period of time that is usually allowed on a planning permission by default for commencement of a planning permission is 3 years. In this case, the condition is set at 7 years. This is what officers are recommending. The reason being that currently the government are reorganizing the system for queuing for permits for new renewable energy infrastructure projects to connect to the national grid. And this has brought uncertainty in terms of timescales for when a developer, having obtained planning permission, can secure a connection to the national grid. And because of that uncertainty, it's possible that 3 years might not be enough. And we as officers took the view that what we don't want to see happen is for a developer to start work prematurely, simply as a stratagem for keeping their planning permission alive. Because as you may know, once work is commenced, a planning permission becomes it becomes open-ended. It has no expiry date. What we wouldn't want to see is for a developer who's not actually ready to start work to commence work prematurely, simply to keep their planning permission alive because they need more time. Because then, of course, the risk is that we could end up with a site or part of the site being neither one thing nor the other. It would be a building site. It wouldn't be in use anymore for agriculture, but neither would it be generating renewable energy. And that's not something that we want to see. So we think that in this case, there is good reason for allowing longer than the normal 3 years for commencement to avoid that undesirable situation arising.
Councillor Atherton.
Yeah, so thank you for the answer. And the reason for the question was really to draw that information out. Whilst, as you say, we've got the information in the document set in front of us, those listening or watching on YouTube, and indeed some of the people here present, I'm sure don't have access or have not read the document. So I felt it was important to get that out in the public domain. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for interest, I don't know, but have you any idea how big an acreage has been taken up by solar panels up to now? It's just an interest. That's all I'd like to know, because if it's 40 years and our population is going up at the rate it's going up, I wonder what will be left. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, there is a table included in section 5 of the committee report, which sets out some information about existing solar farms in the borough, and also those that have been consented but not built, and those are the pending decisions. And it does the table does include the area in hectares that each of those would take up.
Thank you. I was just meaning for the whole country. That was, for if you knew what.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't give you the figure for the country, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Any more raised hands that would like to question? No, complete. We'll have time for debate later. Thank you. In that case, then, can I call upon our guest speakers, so our Councillor Carl Powell of the Somerby Parish Council, who is going to speak against the recommendation. I'm assuming that you've had the traditional face on the screen. You press the button and away you go. Is that okay? Right. As soon as you're ready and you're comfortable, with 30 seconds to go, Tom will give you a warning at 30 seconds so that you can wind up and you know where you are within the time scales. Thank you very much.
I'm ready.
Whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Carl Powell, objecting to this application for Somerby Parish Council. The national target is 47 gigawatts of solar generation by 2030, but we have no national strategy on where in the country the new solar farm should go or on what kinds of land. The NPPF says that you, as an LPA, should identify suitable areas, allocating land like you do for housing, but you're not being given the chance. You've been given no indication how much solar to aim for in our borough or when, if ever, to stop. All you have is a series of uncoordinated speculative planning applications. So the basis for determinations is still the development plan, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. Somerby Neighbourhood Plan, unlike the local plan, is in date. We've applied all its policies at length in writing, so I'll only stress 2 of them here. One is ENV8. This makes the site a local landscape character area, where any development must respect the qualities, character and distinctiveness of the landscape and do not create inappropriate visual intrusion. The plan describes its key characteristics, too long to read here. The first words are open fields. You can see a long way into it, out from it, through it and across it. That is its defining character. And that character will be lost completely if lines of sight are blocked by this development. Your consultant assesses significant negative landscape impact and substantial negative visual impact in the landscape character area. Policy ENV 13 protects footpath D68, which crosses the site. The issues here are visual impact and the enjoyment of the walking route. Your consultant, again, assesses significant negative effect, which should be given substantial advert weight in your determination. These objective negative impacts are grounds on which you could refuse the application. They are the grounds on which previous applications for an anaerobic digester and poultry barns were refused at appeal, and this proposal dwarfs those proposals in footprint, landscape character and visual impact.
30 seconds.
There are important material considerations around climate change and net zero, but it's a matter for your planning judgment how much weight you give them. There are already 159 megawatts of farms consented in our borough and 169 awaiting determination. Not all of them have to be approved for Melton to contribute substantially to the UK target. There's a cost in uses of other land uses and visual impact. The best proposal should be approved. The ones to refuse are those that directly conflict with current site-specific plan policies, such as this one.
Councillor Powell, could I just ask you to bring your presentation to a close, please?
And that is why we ask you to refuse it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you stay there, please? Thank you.
Yeah.
Could I ask the councillors, is there any questions they'd like to ask Councillor Powell on his presentation to draw out any issues that has come up in the presentation? In that case, thank you very much, Councillor Powell. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to call on Jan McCourt again. This is in the room. As an objector to speak against the proposal. Same strictures, I'm afraid, that apply. Tom will give you 30 seconds as soon as you're comfortable. Start, and the 3 minutes will begin then. Thank you.
Many residents believe that there's been an attitude expressed with reference to the Belvoir Castle case that Melton Borough Council will not refuse this application, as it will only cost you when it is automatically approved upon appeal to the planning inspector. To suggest that the visual effect of this application will not be every bit as devastating as the previous two applications which have been refused is nonsensical in the extreme. It will be substantially more devastating than the previous proposals, which were so resolutely declined by Melton, Leicester, and of course, the planning inspector at a national level twice. The sheer area to be covered by the panels with its specific topography will be far more visually impactful and devastating than either of the previous applications. There is a very high likelihood in the event of an appeal against a refusal of the planning inspector following the overwhelmingly clear view of the previous decisions that any such development will demand decline of an appeal. There is also a matter of procedure which we are advised gives us a strong reason to contemplate an application for a judicial review, should this be approved. The council's own landscape consultant criticised a number of the viewpoints chosen by the applicant as poor choices. He noted that the Melton site is visible from the A606 main road for a stretch of approximately 1.8 kilometres. He states the strong rural character and visual unity of the landscape and the perception of a remote, intimate, quiet landscape, in particular the southern half of the Melton site, will be lost. Overall, it is considered that the proposed development will be highly conspicuous, significantly adversely affecting the baseline landscape character of the site and the local landscape within approximately 2 kilometres to the northeast, east and southeast of the site. Significant adverse landscape effects would not be successfully mitigated by the proposed landscape measures. The self-styled rural capital of food promises so much, Its councillors have fought hard to preserve this uniquely important and dramatic location, which sits as a kind of gateway welcoming visitors as they broach the top of Three Step Hill on the road from Rutland. Come, it says, swoop down into our arms, through and past incredible churches, windmills, and glorious houses, cottages, and barns.
30 seconds.
Drive past fields of gold, green, and deep, rich, dark soil. Stay a while with, in, and around this remarkable collection of people and places who together form a robust heart and core of deeply rural yet innovative and modern community which welcomes you with open arms. We think it inconceivable, given the above, that you could decide to approve this shocking desecration of such an important and beautiful area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bang on time. Would you like to stay there, Mr. Court? And see if there's any questions that people would like to ask to clarify whatever point. No? No, councillors? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that presentation. Thank you. Can I call upon Daniel Corcoran, please? The agent and will be speaking for the proposal, and it'll also be accompanied by James Finn, who won't be speaking, but is there to answer questions if we have any on the presentation that was given by the applicant. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, councillors. My name's Dan Corcoran, and I'm a Development Projects Manager at RWE, leading on this project tonight. For context, RWE is a leading energy producer in the UK, providing 15% of the UK's energy. Our proposal before you tonight, Lumiere Solar Farm, will export 49.9 megawatts of clean energy into the national grid for 40 years before it's decommissioned, with 99% of all materials recyclable. This is enough clean energy to meet the annual electricity demand of about 25,000 houses per year and displace around 43,000 tonnes per year of CO2 from other forms of energy production. We're pleased to see that this contribution to the UK's energy future and the benefits to the community inherent within the proposals are being recommended to you for approval. I thought that it might be useful to provide some context to you as to why we're here and why we're proposing this project in this location. As a solar developer, we're regularly looking for opportunities to connect to the national grid. But connections to the grid are a vastly scarce resource. When we can actually secure a connection point, we then have to undertake a robust site selection process around that point of connection. This site has satisfied that search criteria in that the site avoids landscape designations like national landscapes or national parks. 95% of the site is not best and most versatile land. The topography of the site is suitable to accommodate panels considering overshadowing and neighbouring uses, and not on land at high risk of flooding. In progressing the proposals, we've undertaken extensive community engagement and have engaged with officers, stakeholders and consultees. We then evolve the scheme and make iterations and changes to it where we can. Alongside the proposals, as highlighted in the officer's report, there's a comprehensive and extensive suite of technical and environmental assessments to justify what's before you. We were very pleased to see the level of local support offered from local residents, although we do also recognise there have been some opposition to it too. Subject to any approval, we would obviously continue to work with the local community during the construction and operation of the site and hope to prove ourselves to be a good neighbour to those. The proposal that's before you has been carefully designed, and we're pleased to note that no objections have been raised by consultees, including the Climate Change Officer, Ecology, Heritage, as well as the Environment Agency, Natural England, Historic England, Highways and LLFA. In line with your officer's report concluding that there are some harms over the 40 years which are temporary and reversible, they're outweighed by significant positive benefits: the permissive footpath, fitness trail, dog agility stations, environmental enhancements beyond 10% net gain, free charging points, drainage improvements, and job training opportunities. I therefore respectfully urge you to please follow your officer's recommendation in approving this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bang on time. You'd like to stay there for a moment? Again? Councillor Gordon.
If I may, I've got 3 questions, if that's okay. Yeah, lovely. Right. The first one is the cleaning of solar panels. This is condition 15. It said no staff on site when the site is up and running, except for 1 or 2 staff per month or so, which is okay for maintenance purposes. But how many people will be needed to clean the solar panels? How long will it take? And how often will it be within each year?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It largely depends on the reports we get from the monitoring on site. All cleaning is within the condition, it's just with clean water, so there's not any chemicals that are needed to go onto the panels. Largely, they should be self-cleaning through any rain that occurs throughout the year, but if we're getting reports from the monitoring that certain panels or in particular rows need cleaning, then we'd have to send someone out. But we're not envisaging it would be extensive and lots of visits at all. They should be a self-cleaning, hence that with the tilt on the panel, rainwater should clean them.
So whatever happens, if it does need cleaning, it wouldn't take long.
Correct.
So yeah, that's okay. The second question is the new permissive footpath along by the brook at the valley at the bottom. Will it have a fence to stop walkers from entering the 20-metre outside of the site perimeter? Because that would be private property. I just wondered what you would have along there.
Yeah, thank you for that. So along the eastern boundary, along the brook, what we're proposing is not to have a fence again on the other side. So there'd be a fence on the solar side. It would then be 4 metres of wildflower meadow, 2 metres of maintained for permissive path, and 4 metres of wildflower meadow again. So then it's kind of delineated by the keeping of the 2-metre path in the middle where walkers should be. But we don't want to then have another fence on that side. We thought that would be too incongruous.
Yes, that sounds okay, because I thought with the meadow, they would stay on the path, wouldn't they? So if they've got any dogs or anything that's loose, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, you could always put something up that dog's on lead anyway, can't you? Yeah. And the third question is the D68/5, that public right of way where it goes through the site. Now I know it's about 10 to 15 minute walk on average. Now, is it just fencing along there, alongside the pathway, or would it be some hedging of some sort along each side?
Great question. So what's proposed is hedging. So you'd have the panels, then the fence, then a hedge, and then the footpath would be in the middle. And then again, it would be 10-metre corridor minimum with 2-metre footpath, and then 4 metres either side of planting, then a hedge to then try and screen to the panels either side.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon, for that. I see you've not lost your knack for asking extremely good questions. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Can I take Councillor Adcock first,
Thank
please?
you, Chair. Yes, thank you for the comments. Perhaps you could help us with this. It's a very ballpark general question, but we're told that this development would be able to produce 49.99 megawatts. Yeah. I mean, if you look at say the borough of Melton generally, I mean, how much do you think reasonably the borough corridor should be expected to produce? I mean, 49.99 megawatts with 25,175 homes. I mean, it's a significant figure, but it's very difficult to put it into context for somebody who isn't familiar with it. In the borough of Melton, if you were saying, well, how much could Melton reasonably be expected to contribute under this type of energy, what would we be talking about?
I'm confused by the question, sorry, in terms of what Melton should be contributing.
Well, if this development is approved, it's going to produce 49.99 megawatts.
Yeah.
Which everybody would concede is a good thing. Yeah. And clearly there is a great deal of support for the idea that you have this energy development, because of course we're having to move against carbon fuel, and we've got targets to meet, and it is obligatory to move towards them.
Yeah.
But if you look at the borough, I mean, what do you think the borough could reasonably be expected to contribute to those figures? If this one development is 49.99 megawatts.
So I think is the question trying to say proportionately allocate the generation of energy to the needs of each individual borough?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that with hard lines like that, there's touched on in the officer's report and one of my earlier comments. Grid availability is a scarce resource. There's certain areas of the country that naturally will, due to the existing infrastructure of overhead lines, which for us is in the Rutland side, that is an existing overhead cable. Certain areas of the country will just naturally have more available connection points, so could feel disproportionately affected by the number of solar farms, wind farms, offshore wind, whatever it might be that comes forward. And that's by nature of the existing infrastructure that's in those places, that we are not generating new overhead lines. It's the existing infrastructure that we're tapping into. And where there is spare capacity, that's where we're led. So say, unlike housing allocation, where you follow the SHLA and you work out your 5-year housing land supply and you say, well, this is our need based on growth. We don't have that equivalence because we have to be led by grid. We don't start this process saying, let's find a landowner, or let's say go to a local authority we haven't been in. We can't work like that. So instead of using local authority boundaries, we instead have to work with where are the transmission lines, where are the distribution lines, based upon those, where can we connect into? And I can understand from certain points of view, it could feel like there's lots of applications in a certain cluster. And that's just by nature of the existing infrastructure having spare capacity. There's other parts of the country that won't have that infrastructure, and by default, other renewable energy proposals won't be there.
Councillor on that?
Thank you. My question relates to the use of the land during the 40 years for agricultural purposes. Now, we're shown these idyllic scenes of sheep grazing under solar panels almost monthly now. Now, what I'm interested to know is, do you, as the owner of the solar panels, take part positively in ensuring that that happens? Is it an agreement with the existing landowner? Because many of us are a bit sceptical about this ever actually happening.
Yeah.
You know, it looks nice on a brochure, but how do you make it happen? And what is the positive productivity just for farming in that context? That's one question.
Yep. As an owner operator of developments, we were quite happy to work with Max and councillors on drafting the conditions, because we envisage that we'll be building this, we'll be operating it, and we'll be hopefully a neighbour and a good neighbour into the community for the 40 years of operation. From our point of view, we look at guidance that exists within National Farmers Union and best practice guidance. We have feedback from landowners on existing farms who are farmers about how we can set out, you'll see there's lots of different, say, pockets of fields around where we've put panels in. How can they be designed to be compatible to allow both solar farm generation and also grazing? Max touched on there's 4 different grass types as well. Part of that is recognising that not all grass mixes are suitable for grazing. There's only certain mixes which would be. And also we want to make sure that where we can, that grazing mix also gives us a biodiversity benefit, and see if we can again have 2 different benefits coming forwards. From our point of view, what we would do, we would obviously reach out to the original, freeholder to see if they would be interested. And if they weren't interested, we would then be actively trying to speak to existing farmers in the area to see if they would like to use it. From our point of view, the lease and the consideration is coming from the rent of a solar farm. So therefore it's an extra use if someone else is willing to then maintain the grass around it. We'd want to work positively with the neighbours on that.
So you're already doing this in some places.
Yeah.
Have you had successes in that? I mean, have you, as it were, marketed some fields and you've got a take up for them?
We've actually been quite lucky that existing landowners have wanted to do it. So we've been quite fortunate in that regard.
Second question is, you've heard from the objectors a great weight about the harm that's being done in terms of view. And that's recognised in the report.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment about that? In what respect can you mitigate against that directly? Because it is a significant factor, I think, for all of us.
It is a significant factor, and in no way would we shy away from the landscape impacts that comes from a solar farm development. It's got a large footprint, and by the nature of solar farms, they will have a large footprint, and obviously visibility from Three Step Hill coming from the east and local residents. When we first started this, one of the first things we did is we knocked on all of the neighbours' houses. So I know a lot of the neighbours who are here tonight. We went and had cups of tea with them. We sat, some that we spoke to at their property, and we went to visit and look at it from the point of view of their property. I think on one of Max's slides, it showed the setbacks that we said. We're like, okay, we went to their houses. We could see that there's a view in. Let's actually set back the panels and recognise that there is a view from that property. We could then do a second layer of screening with a new additional hedge. The northern boundary of the site has been set back from the A606, as there's a line of terrace houses and properties on the northern side of the road. Also towards the east, again, it was set back in a bit of an L shape further back from the properties to the east. So we do recognise that there is an impact. One of the great things about solar farms is that the maximum height of the panels is 3 meters, and therefore wherever possible we can say we can then do 3-4 meters of hedging that's then higher and screens it. Some of Max's photos touched on at ground, if you're the same level, it's not looking in, it's then when you're at a higher level looking in. There is a landscape impact. We've never shied from it. If we avoid national parks, we avoid areas of outstanding natural beauty, we avoid triple SIs, and we've still got to go around where there's a grid connection. We then have to say to ourselves as a company, what's the best we can do where we have a willing landowner that meets all the other criteria and we follow national policy. We've gone to extensive efforts to try to screen the site. We've gone through several rounds of revision, adding even more screening, trees which are higher than the hedging, the trees to the southwest of the site as you drive down into Pickwell. We've gone and as over this several times, there are certain high level views that we won't be able to overcome. It's just that we then try and say the other community benefits to try and outweigh that, adding the permissive path, the free electric vehicle charging, and the environmental benefits that go with it, and hope that the cumulative positives will outweigh the 40-year impact of the landscape harm.
Thank you. Any Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right. Really, following on from my fellow councillors here, do I take it that you said that you can't use land, that you can't get near enough to connect to the national grid? So really, you're looking for land regardless whether it's good or bad? Really? The other thing is, and the other question I want to ask, as my fellow councillor over here said, that there are several sites here which are either proposed or they're going through, etc., etc. As that is happening, you might have more than you need, more electricity than you need. So do I take it then you will sell it? You'll sell it somewhere else? Apparently summer's gone abroad, hasn't it? You know, I just feel really concerned when you say that you have to put the site, I'm just reading this now, join to the national grid where it's best for you to do it. So halfway up a mountain is not a bad idea to me. I can quite see.
Councillor Holmes, could you frame a question?
Thank you.
Please.
And that's my question, is what is really why it has to be on places that it suits you, but not where the land is really bad land. Thank you.
Can I just say before you answer that question, thank you very much, we'll be having a comfort break. There seems to be a breakout. There seems to be people wanting drinks and one thing or the other. So we'll finish, at the end of this, we'll finish with a comfort break. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I delivered it that we were searching for land where best that suits us. Sorry, that's not the case. we search for land where we can find a spare capacity to the grid. It's not land-led. It's not that we search for land owners who are willing first. We need to search where there's a suitable and viable connection to the grid. So if every overhead pylon that you see along a line is a game of duck, duck, go, it's just no, 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 no. Eventually we get a yes. When we get that yes, that is the scarce resource that we talk about. So many times the answer is that there's no spare capacity. The grid lines, the transmission lines, the distribution lines we see are already at capacity. But when you see that one junction that we can connect into, that's a very rare commodity to come across. And that's when we can secure the connection that we've secured here that then belongs to us. That's when we start the search criteria. If there were spare capacity points that we could locate along the side of a mountain, would be there too. We didn't choose the spare location to be here. That was dictated by virtue of how the grid set up and where the spare capacity is. Yeah, and that's where grid has it. Sorry.
Thank you. Any more questions, Councillor Atherton?
Thank you, Chair. Just one very brief question. Early in your 3 minutes, you stated that there would be benefit to the community. Unless the electricity generated is piped to the community, which I doubt, because it will just go into the grid and disappear and be for general consumption. Mm-hmm. What benefits will the solar farm bring to the community?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's not a planning consideration, and there's no weight to be given from a planning point of view, but we have spoken to the community about a community benefit fund that RWE would do, and we've been speaking to the parishes about that. So there is a tangible, quantifiable financial benefit, but I'm saying that from a context of that's happening outside of planning, but we are speaking to make sure that there is something that the community can choose how that goes. Within the red line, and from a purely planning point of view where we can give planning consideration to, that's why we're saying that the minute there's only D68, the footpath that runs north-south, we're doing just shy of 5 kilometres of additional new permissive paths within the site. That opens up the permeability of the site, allows more people to use it. By putting way markers, whether that's 1, 2, 3 kilometres, we can show what a 5 kilometre route could be if someone wants to run it, walk it with the dog. There'll be information boards that's aimed at different key stage levels of education to encourage people, whether it's from key stage 1, 2, 3, 4 and adults, about what renewable energy is, whether it's from archaeology, what we found on the site, whether it's ecology, what we found on the site, what the benefits are from what's happening within the red line. The free electric vehicle charging points that are going to be located closest towards the village, again, just on site for people to use. So within the planning parameters, we believe there's quite a bit, including the community orchard as well, that we're trying to say that we're going to, if this gets consent, yes, we would be here for 40 years. We want to be a good neighbour. We don't want to just be saying this is a solar farm. We're just pushing it through on policy. There's certain elements within the red line we can control and do and offer more, and that's what we want to be seen to do, and that's why we've offered those.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Any, Councillor Sharp?
Thank you, Chair. Just got one question, well, probably two in the end. To do with the installation, the posts that the solar panels are fixed to are pressed into the ground. And on one of the slides, it did say improved drainage. Yep. Can you start by telling me what the improved drainage is first before the second question?
In terms of the swales.
Yeah.
Sorry, just bring it up to the.
No, that's fine. Don't worry.
That's right. Thank you. So when we first looked at the site, we looked at what the existing greenfield runoff is. Basically, that's with our flood risk consultants modelling the site after we did a topographical survey. We can see how the water flows and undulates throughout the site. Throughout the site, we're proposing a combination of swales and leaky dams, which basically just slows down the rate that it was running into the stream down to the east, allows the site to then hold back more water. And there's therefore a flood risk improvement that was put forward.
Just that when the water runs off the panels, hits the ground, Yeah, you're saying slow dams and stuff like that, but you've got to have drainage underneath the ground to take it to these parcels. Is there any existing drainage under the ground to start off with that you know about? If there is so, could you let me know?
In
If there's any existing.
If there's any existing training that we're aware
If
of.
there's the other thing is if there's existing drainage underground and you're pushing posts into the ground,
Yeah.
not knowing where the existing drainage is, the posts will be going through the old drains, which is going to cause a concern of backing up drainage. And if you've got water coming down the field that all of a sudden starts bubbling, you're going to have excessive channels being created.
So we've got a geophysical survey where we've basically done an X-ray of the land as well as a topographical survey. On that, we've working with our flood risk consultants. That's why we've proposed the leaky dams and swales throughout the site. We're not aware of the proposals at the minute being shown to have an adverse impact, and in the conclusions of it, that it would actually lead to betterment.
Yeah, just add as well, the LLFA have obviously reviewed the drainage details that have been supplied with the application and haven't raised any objection to it. So we're confident that we've got a solution here which actually delivers betterment over the current drainage situation on the site.
Excuse me, can I just bring on this point? Can I just bring Max in? That he may help.
Thank you, Chair. Just to mention that to respond to the councillor's question as to whether there are existing drains on the site, there are existing drainage ditches on the site which generally follow the perimeters of the fields, and those are referred to technically as ordinary watercourses. They're actually ditches. They would have been dug originally when the priority of the farmers was to direct water off the site as quickly as possible and down into the bottom of the valley. Obviously, that was done in days when there was less consideration given to flood prevention. These days, we like to see water dispersed within the site, soaking away into the soil rather than moving on somewhere else. So, as I say, there are existing drains in the sense of drainage ditches, ordinary watercourses around some of the field perimeters. And my understanding is that the leaky dams that are proposed would be inserted in those existing ditches to slow the rate at which the water is diverted down those ditches into the bottom of the valley and the watercourse, so that more of the water is absorbed into the ground along the way rather than being hurried down the valley and into the brook.
So if you've got the ditches and you've got drainage going, you've got to have some sort of drains that runs into the ditches. Got me? So you've got drains underground that run to the ditches to take the flow of water. That's what normally happens on agricultural fields. They've usually got drains underground that take the water to the ditches and the ditches take it to the settlements. If you're pushing posts into the ground at a metre deep, with not knowing where drains are, you are going through those drains. So you are altering the course of water which would normally go. It would have to be runoff water, not underground water.
I'm not aware of there being any underground drains at the moment. The idea is that the rainwater is absorbed into the ground. If the ground is saturated following periods of heavy rain, that's when rainwater runs downhill, and that's what we're seeking to avoid. Just to get back to the point that was raised a moment ago, the lead local flood authority is, of course, the county council. They've requested, as indeed have the Environment Agency, that conditions be applied to require the submission of further detailed plans, drainage plans, which would be submitted for approval, and that would be in consultation with the Environment Agency and the lead local flood authority. And the idea, of course, is betterment. The idea is to ensure that the amount of rainwater that finds its way downhill into the brook should be less than it is now.
Mr. Sharp, within, I have a question unusually as chair. Will there be any permeation tests required to understand the drainage implications of the site? What I mean by permeation tests at the foot of the solar panel, because there's obviously a ponding effect, and if there could be some sort of permeation test to understand how that works, that may alleviate Councillor Sharp's a problem. But I'm digressing into debate now, and I don't want to do that. So we'll leave my question at that. Is anyone else wanting to understand? That's okay. In that case, then, thank you very much. That's very good. We'll finish that one there. And with all the breakout and the leader wanting to go to do something, I don't know what it was, I'm proposing that we have a short break, if that's okay, with stretch your legs, and be back here at, according to my watch, it's 19:35 at 20 to 8, please. Yes, tonight, no, tonight, yeah, I'm afraid. And just to remind you, I know you know that it may be a pleasure for some of you not to talk amongst yourselves, but please don't talk amongst yourselves regarding the application itself, or indeed the audience. I'll be much obliged if you would do that. Thank you very much, and I shall be keeping an eye on you. Could I ask you all to assemble now, please? Thank you. We'll now enter the debate session on this application, and I'm offered open to members to debate the application. I'm looking for show any hands that wish to open the debate. No debate. Well, if there's no debate, then we'll move to. Here we go. That always gets them out. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. I have done quite a bit of work on this. Hopefully this is relevant to the planning application. Our harvest this year is down at least 50%. Did go and look at the land. Apparently it's supposed to be very poor land. It isn't. There is a pig farm. It's being done something to at the moment, but there could be manure put on from the pig farm. We are in a very worrying situation in this country, and I think we've all got to appreciate that. I think most of us eat bread, and the bread basket of Europe is in turmoil. In fact, although there's quite a lot of grain coming from other countries, the Ukraine is having a great problem to harvest theirs because there are incendiary bombs put all over the place. I can understand farmers wanting to take the easy way out, but 40 years of not having productive land when we're a small country has got to be thought about very seriously. And I'll leave it there. But fellow councillors, realise 40 years is a long time. And as I did ask, how many of these solar panels were in the whole country? I wasn't just saying around here in the proposed ones. By the way, the only one that actually is really viable is the one at Six Hills. Nearly bought that land some years ago. It's terrible land, but absolutely ideal for what it's for. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Holmes. I thought.
Well, I'll go into bat and hope that
I thought you might.
Yeah, I might. Yeah. I want to thank the officers for a very comprehensive report, a big coverage, and thank also members of the public for being here tonight. This is a significant and controversial application, as all these are, and I have read the report and I've trawled through the many references. I visited the site and I've read the representations of the opposers and even the late ones last night and this morning. So I'm giving it my best attention. I need to remind myself really about the key points, and these are clearly set out in the report at paragraphs 1.09 and 1.10 on pages 15 and 16, and at paragraphs 13.12 to 13.1.4 on page 111. In short, before arriving at a decision this evening, I've got to determine whether I agree or disagree with the recommendation on the balance of benefit and harm. And some of the other points really are peripheral. There is an important paradox, as just been alluded to by Councillor Holmes, and that's the paradox of farm diversification and the nation's food security. I happen to know that for the last 140 years, we've imported at least 40% of our food. And if you include the Channel Islands, who provided most of our onions at one time, and Southern Ireland, of course, it goes up even further. So as an island, we have always imported a lot of food since the middle of the 19th century. And the current concerns, which Councillor Holmes alluded to, are not unique in that period of time. Now, we have to consider this planning application on its merits. We are guided by various documentation which asks us to take cognizance of national policies of different sorts, and that includes food production, farming, and I'm astounded that what I've heard tonight about that particular appeal decision, because I think that will drive a coach and horses through any protection we can give to farming in the future. However, we can't consider that tonight. We have to consider the application in front of us, and we are bound by certain rules. We can't step outside those rules. So, I've got the glasses on. No wonder I can't see what I'm saying. I want to just say, Chairman, that the things that I'm going to disregard in putting my blinkers on and looking at this application. Firstly, among some of the objections, there are some points which are simply, we can't just look at. I mean, you know, unfortunately, or fortunately, they are outside our remit. The other thing I'm going to choose to ignore is this statement about the operational period of 40 years. I know we have to put it in, otherwise it becomes open-ended, but all of us who are involved in planning thinks this is a bit of a joke, isn't it, really? I mean, telling us anything is temporary for 40 years is a nonsense. But I don't think it really, in my mind, weighs very heavily one way or another in this particular application. I have read in the emails we've sent concern about the consultation exercise, the non-statutory voluntary consultation exercise carried out by the applicant. Now, I'm actually ignoring that anyway, because I think that a consultation exercise at best is a PR exercise, and it only gives us second-hand opinion, whether it's for or against. So I'm sort of, and I've said before, and I've heard officers say, we have to weigh the arguments, not the number of voices that are being heard. So I don't take that too seriously. The fourth point is about climate change. There was a big narrative there, most of which I agree with, but I don't think it really gets us any further forward. Of course, if the application was for a coal-fired power station, I think all of those arguments would be relevant, but I don't think it's germane to what we're dealing with now. And to my mind, and I will listen to all the arguments, it seems to me that if you look at the report and the various harms and benefits, some of the benefits are overstated and some of the harms are understated. That's how it seems to me. And one of the things that I think I would like some help with is really how, in fact, the recommendations come to the conclusion that something's obviously on balance one way or the other. You're not weighing it in physical terms. You're making a subjective assessment of, well, on the one hand, that is a problem, you know, losing the views, but on the other hand, we get a lot of electricity. But nobody can tell me, and I've never seen it written down, how you make that value judgment. To me, it's the judgment of Solomon. And as I sit here now, my personal view, oh, sorry, can I just divert a little bit? I listened to Councillor Carl Powell, the chairman, is it, of the parish council, and he alluded to the sort of the atmosphere of the Klondike. We're having all these applications without a national strategy. And I'd just like to say to him, I agree with that sentiment. And I, as leader of this council, I've written twice to the previous Secretary of State and now the current one, making that very point. And I think we are beginning to see a move. It troubles me greatly that we are the individual farmer who is trying to diversify and earn a living is tempted to go for solar panels because it's quite easy, isn't it? You've got to get up in the morning and milk cows or muck out the pigs. You've got to get an income, a steady flow, and that's what the what's happening in the Vale of Beaver, whether it's solar panels or leasing out homes for children's homes or having pop festivals. They want to do anything but milk a cow, right? So that's what we're living in. So I take that point on board. It is, but we have to deal with this application. That's the point, not with how we would like things to be, and we have to consider it. I'm leaning towards refusal at the moment, but I want to hear other arguments because of the question of the views, the general. The word was used, desecration of that aspect. Having said that, I accept fully that we do need electricity in this country. We need it for midwifery, for dentistry, and we're going to need it much more for electric vehicles. So I don't take on board the argument at all that this is either producing too much electricity or too little electricity. We've got to produce a lot of electricity in this country. When the lights go off, everything goes off. Air conditioning, refrigeration, life and death. So if we don't get our Energy Act together, we're going to be in the brown and nasty. So, Mr. Chair, I will listen to other arguments. I'm persuadable. At the moment, I'm leaning towards refusal for the reason I gave.
Sorry about that conversation between me and the legal eagle. We just need to adjourn the meeting for a couple of minutes just to look at some procedural matters, if that's okay. So we'll continue in 2 minutes. Okay. Thank you. If I can just explain what that was about, that's sorry about that. We did have a request from the ward councillor to read out something on his behalf regarding this application. We were under the impression that he had not registered to do that. We did question. I have questioned that with regards to standing orders, etc., etc., etc. But it may appear that he could have not done it through democracy, but done it in a different way and registered. So we're going to give that the benefit of the doubt and read out the Tom's going to read it out on the committee. So if just bear with us, this is the comments by the ward councillor, Councillor Higgins, with regards to this application, because I think it's relevant that it should be read out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to confirm, it looks like there's been a administrative oversight on where the comments were sent. But I think in the spirit of the Constitution and the procedure rules, it's fair to say that the member did actually register to speak in time, and it is therefore appropriate. I've got the representation here that will be read out. So this is from Councillor Lee Higgins, who is the ward member for this area. As the ward councillor representing Pickwell and Cold Overton within the Somerby ward and the surrounding area, I wish to formally highlight residents' concerns to this application. I do so not only on planning grounds, but also on behalf of the majority of residents in the affected villages who have expressed strong opposition to the scheme. What is also important is that is passed tonight is the applicant developer work with me, the Borough Council and the Parish Councils to establish a trust for any committee fund they are looking to set up in order for this to be done strategically with professional support. I have presented the specific comments and policies in print which should be with you tonight. This proposal conflicts with key policies of the Melton Local Plan and with the MPPF, but also common sense in this mad rush to cumulatively industrialise the rural area with alien features. While renewable energy is important in principle, this is not the right site and this is not the right policy by national government either. It would cause significant and unnecessary harm to the countryside, heritage and food security of Melton Borough. On behalf of the residents I represent, I respectfully request that the council take steps to stop the willful industrialisation of rural areas and settings to heritage assets. The government and the disaster that is Ed Miliband is placing a great burden on taxing households in favour of landowners, a totally perverse situation. We should see government support house owners and commercial buildings host solar panels on their established roofs, which wouldn't impact food production. Yesterday, we see energy prices increase due to Mr. Miliband's mad rush to pay off wind turbine owners to stop producing energy. End.
Thank you, Tom. I think it's important that was read out to the committee, and thank you for that, everyone. Before I go on, I've listened to Councillor Ornett's appraisal, and everyone, there are certain people in this committee will know how strong feelings I have with regard to these applications. But I would like to point out one thing to us all. This is a triangle, in my opinion. I know that Councillor Ornett has pointed to the harm and the benefits, but along with in this triangle, the other fixed point in the ground, as far as I can see, are policies. And the policies we are absolutely ring-fenced. I would say the policies that we have to work with are very, very, very. In fact, you could call them draconian, in my opinion. But nevertheless, they are policies, and you have to take good. You must take account of the policies, and the harm and the benefits and the policies. I say that as chairman, just to bring it to your attention, and I just want you to understand that we must have due consideration of the policies, the MPPF, the planning framework, and the agreements that we're entered into. I just want to make that point. Thank you. Shall we continue with the debate? Councillor Pritchett, and then I'll take Councillor Butcher. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Solomon here. Thank you very much, Chair. I got my notes here as well. Rules. I'm here to appraise the application against, judge its worth against the rules, not to complain about the rules or how I want to change them. And yes, we do have concerns about food production, what some see as unstructured development of solar farms. And I also make the point that I'm here to judge the Melton Borough Council aspect And that means I cannot judge the totality of the impact by looking at the whole of the site, the substation, against the landscape and heritage issue. I'm doing it. So I'll do my summary, and I'm very grateful to the report, the portal documents, and the contributions from the public. And briefly, I'll go through my 3 or 4 key issues. There's nothing in the reports and on my site visits to say there's any demeaning of any of the heritage assets. And one thing that came out of the presentation is that there is localised impact on the landscape. And by localised, I mean within the vicinity, immediate vicinity of it. Once you step back to area, there's limited or no weight in the reports to the landscape harm. Now, in respect of the appeal site, which I think is an outlier, and it flies in the face of the government guidance and our own policies that have been quoted, I'm giving that no weight at all. What I am giving weight to is that there is a small amount of best and most versatile land, a very small amount, which in my weighing up my decision is limited weight, and it is collateral damage in the centre that is not, it cannot be efficiently utilised and set out. That's the third point. And the fourth point is in judging and weighing up the benefits and disbenefits, I'm giving little to next no weight to the freebies, the bees and the orchard, and you've got to go 2 miles with your wheelbarrow to get an apple, that sort of thing. I'm giving no weight to that, but I am relating to heritage, landscape, the key issues of agricultural land. I'm seeing the weight is in favour, policy compliance is in weight of approval, but I, like yourself, Councillor Alnett, I'm waiting to hear what comes out from the rest of the debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchett. Councillor Butcher,
Thank you. I can't help but listen to the parish councillor that put forwards about their up-to-date neighbourhood plan, EMV8 and EMV13 that he represented.
Thank you. Councillor Atherton.
Thank you, Chair. So I think I share the same concerns about the rules that we're governed by as many other people. It does concern me that this is one of 12 either operational or planned solar farms in the borough, which is probably too many for a borough of this size, but it's not a material planning consideration, unfortunately. What does concern me is the Somerby local plan. In it states in section 2.2.4 that Natural England consider the historic character of the area to be at risk, and I can't see anything in this proposal that does anything to lessen the risk or enhance the character of the site. The Somerby local plan also on page 53 talks about an Iron Age site east of Snygate Lane, which it references as MLE 23431. And that's not mentioned in the report at all. And it is within the planned site for the solar farm. To me, the plan contravenes Somerby local plan OBJ 6, 7, 8, 11, 13, ENV 2, 7, 8, 13 and 15. However, the depth of contravention of those may not be high enough to offset the need for the solar farm and the benefits that come from it. I have to say that as I sit here at the moment, I've got a foot in both camps and I'm not sure which way to go. Despite what I've said, I will find it difficult to not agree to the proposal because the benefits outweigh the bad things. in my opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Atherton. Is there any more? Councillor Pritchett.
Yeah, I think I would just add that there are some things that I don't like, and I intrinsically, it's in my nature. I do not like to see solar on inclines towards valleys. Do not like it. I prefer that it was more of a flatter. I think we had one reasonably a smaller one on an incline, but as I say, whilst I'm leaning to approve it, there are factors around this that I do not like.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchett. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think, sitting here listening to it, I think that I'm just having a quick scan of the MPPF as well, just to remind Anne of the local plan. I think you've got a very strong neighbourhood plan, which clearly would enable some of the points that have been raised by Councillor Butcher and Councillor Atherton in relation to the landscape character, heritage of the area, and also those of us who drive up and down that road most weeks will know you're going to have on the 606. It will have a visual impact, no matter what anybody says with regards to that. So at the moment, I concur with everything that everybody has said. I think if we're going to if anybody is minded to put forward a proposal for refusal, I think it needs to be on policy points, etc. I think, as you said, Chair, and that's the way I'm leaning at the moment. But I'm just going to have another scan of a few documents just to see if there's anything in the national or local that would meet that, because I think doing it on the neighbourhood plan itself may not carry enough weight for me.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I'm inclined to agree with that proposal. Refusal must be on strength. It has to be on firm proposals so that we can put together a case for refusal. But Councillor Atherton.
Can I just add, as part of the debate, to put one of the comments made earlier to bed. As a committee, we are aware of the cost of appeals, but that is not a material consideration, and we've debated it long and deeply in the past. So I just want to reassure people present that we do not consider the cost of any potential appeal as part of our decision.
Thank you, Councillor. As chair, it didn't enter into my thinking at all. People around here will know that I've been the subject of many appeals because of some of the things that I have voted against in this chamber. But has anyone else got anything to say? Because we need to move on. We need to move we have another application. I'm not starting debate. I just want to move.
Thank you. Very far-thinking man. I think he's dead now, but he advocated solar panels on houses, on anything, on buildings in the town, anything. And what did we do? We took no notice. And when we had our first neighbourhood plan, what did we do? We didn't. Oh well, we can't. I won't be here for this application, the Sysenby farm. Are we not saying that every house should have solar tiles on it? No, we won't, because the developers will say, oh, we can't afford it. Isn't it time we actually took a stand, a proper stand, against having just the ability to be able to raise our own electricity for every house without having, every time we have a bit of land that it is easy to actually put a few solar panels on, well, yeah, let's do it. But we don't need this if we did what we should be doing, and that is putting solar tiles on houses. I hope the ones above the here are working. They weren't for a very long time. And so I will not be voting for it, but I will also not be the one to propose refusal.
Thank you for that. I'll just remind, as chair, not as committee, as chair, that in the NPPF we have to give significant weight to the benefits of solar. I'm just pointing that out. And again, it is this balance between what happens with views, historic fabric, the countryside, and that benefit against the heart. We all know that. But again, I would point up, and this is generally pointed up, there are policies that we must adhere to. We need to come to a conclusion that we have policies that can overcome any appeal in the future. We must put a robust policy decision that we have refused this, if we are minded to refuse it. And I don't think, of looking around this table, that we've made our minds up yet. So can I just ask Councillor Pritchett to...
Might be helpful in flushing out the weight of any evidence against, to support policies against, is if Max could remind us, is there any weight towards a refusal that our own conservation officer covered in his report?
Louise, do you want to comment on this, or would you like? Okay. The comments that were received from the conservation officer are reproduced in the report, which were that generally national and local policies are in support of the generation of renewable energy. There weren't any comments in there that were suggesting that there's a reason for refusal in this case.
Any other member wants to take part in the debate, because we're going to have to then come to conclusion and vote on recommendation. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I think let's just bring this to a head. I'm going to recommend a refusal here, if somebody will second it, and may come in with other points, but based on the local plan, EN6 settlement character, point 1 and point 1 only, and then EV8 of the neighbourhood plan, and ENV13 of the neighbourhood plan. So if somebody could second me on that, take this to the head.
Thank you, Chair. Can we just go through that again slowly, just to make sure I've got it, please? EN 6.1 only of the local plan. Sorry, I've got this bit wrong. I know I have the neighbourhood plan. 0.8, did you?
EV8
EV8.
and ENV13.
EV8 of the neighbourhood plan.
ENV, yeah.
Yeah, ENV8.
Yeah. 13. EV. No, and then ENV13. So it's two different points.
It's EV8.
Sorry, Councillor Brown.
Yeah,
was the
EV8.
Yeah.
Which is the local plan, with neighbourhood plan character, and ENV13, which is the negative impact in relation to the footpath, etc.
Got that, thank you.
I've a seconder for that proposal, but I want to hear Councillor Applicant first, please.
Well, I was going to second the motion, Chair, but add into it the Somerby local plan, OBJ 6, 7, 8, 11 and 13. And
While they're reading it out, Councillor Brown, could you confirm that these are part of your proposal, please?
Yeah, I'm willing to accept that amendment, or addition.
Thank you.
And I haven't finished with them yet. It's Somerby local plan ENV 2, 7, 8, 13 and 15.
Okay, so that was OBJ 6, 7 and 8. 11 and 13, ENV 2, 7, 8, 13 and 15. And from the proposer, can I get an understanding of the harm that is occurring that conflicts with those policies, please?
Yeah, basically it's contradictory to the character and the rural settlement and the visual impact within the local community and within the local parish. You make something out of that.
I'm grateful to Tom for that. I will hear from Councillor Arnott in a moment, but we do need. Pardon? No. This is for me. But we do need to debate what those harms are, if that's okay. So I have a clear understanding. You've read out some very, very nice numbers and letters and references, but I don't really know what is being said, and I would imagine that other councillors don't understand it. So can we debate what we're actually? Otherwise, we're going into this thing blind. That's me. Can I just take Councillor Arnott's opinion?
Chair, you stolen my words in a sense. Yeah. Oh, well, okay. What I would like to see this evening is that we actually defer this for a special meeting next week, and I'll tell you why. I think it's important that we take this very seriously and not sort of on the fly. I would like to see all of those references set out so that we can see them and think about it more deeply before. I don't feel, on the basis of what I've heard so far, that I could in all good conscience say I'm definitely in favour of that or I'm definitely against it. I want to do it justice. I've said at the outset, my gut feeling is that because of the issue about the whole ambience of the valley, of the area and the views, I was leaning towards refusal. But I need to be pushed a bit harder based on the reading what's being advocated. I really think for the sake of a week or even a cycle, it would be worthwhile to do that, because we mustn't take these decisions lightly because we're, performing in a committee. Do you know what I mean? And that's genuinely how I feel.
Thank you.
Because it is finely balanced.
I totally agree. That's why I wanted to understand what the policies that we're talking. I need to understand the strength of the policies. That's what I need to understand. But I'd like some advice from our legal team on the efficacy of a deferral, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to give some advice, taking it back a step almost. And this advice I give to the Planning Committee. I also give it so that the people at the back of the room can hear this and people watching online. And going back to what the English planning system is, it's what we call a plan-led system, and members are probably aware of that. What that means in reality is the law sets out a requirement that says local planning authorities must make decisions in accordance with the development plan. And that development plan is formed of national policy, so the NPPF and written ministerial statements, and local policy, whether that be the local plan or the neighbourhood plan. It's very rare that a application will come as a perfect application. And some things will conform with those policies and some things won't conform with those policies. So where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us in a place of having to do a bit of a balancing test. And in the reports, you've seen how the report author gives you his opinion on that, his professional opinion. And that is something that a local planning authority must do. And case law has established we must give good reasons for doing that. By coming up with those reasons, it allows us to come to a robust and defensible position. And that's what we must always strive to achieve. To not come to a decision that is robust and defensible and goes through that process puts us in the position of what the inspector calls unreasonable behaviour, which we want to avoid. And it's that unreasonable behaviour that can lead to a cost award, which can be very significant to a local authority. And that's why it's important to take our time with these, slow down and really consider the balance to be done. Some members have already started to do that this evening, and I looked at Councillor Pritchett earlier, who started to do that and weigh up where the harms were and where the positives were, but then what the weight is to be attributed to each of those to come to an informed opinion. So where we are now is a member has put forward a motion to refuse the application and given some policy reasons for that. What now needs to follow, that motion has been seconded. What needs to follow is that balancing exercise. So although the harms have been identified, as a committee, you need to also look at where the positives are. You then need to attribute weight to those in order to come to an informed decision as to why you want to make that decision. That's not me telling you which way to go or not. It's me saying that what we need to do is back up the reasons. And that's what leads to a defensible and robust position. It is possible to defer an application, and something that we have done previously. To defer an application comes with risk of non-determination, and that is something that we always have to draw out. What that means is if an application is not determined within the relevant period, it could be appealed to the inspector. You are, however, still entitled to defer that application if you had good reasons for doing so. As we have a motion currently for a refusal, that motion for refusal would either need to be withdrawn or voted down in order to put a new motion for deferral. Should that happen, the deferral should set out good reasons why you want to defer and explicit detail as to the further information that you wish to receive. That can then be brought back to a subsequent meeting. I would stress that bringing it back next week may not be possible in accordance with calling the meeting on time and doing that, but that could be looked at. I hope that clarifies the position.
I think that was excellent advice. And I'd like to hear from Councillor Hornet.
On the basis of that advice, I want to declare that I will vote against the motion in order to facilitate the opportunity for a deferral. And I will say now, Chair, if I may, that the basis of that deferral be to see, not just hear, the list of policies that are being prayed in aid to advance the idea of refusal, so that I can understand fully what is being said before arriving at a substantive decision. I don't want to rush it and jeopardise this council in any way, but I want to make certain that we're giving due respect and consideration to both the applicant and the opposers of the application. I don't like this sort of doing it on the hoof style.
In that case, then, can I ask Councillor Brown-Woody, on that basis what you've heard regarding deferment and bringing it back to discuss the strengths, weaknesses, and the fors and against, pros and cons, would you be prepared to withdraw your motion on that basis?
Just to be abundantly clear before you come in, and obviously it can't be requested per se. Clearly you have heard what the debate has said and what the speakers have said. You have that decision, but you are entitled to keep your motion on the table and put it to the vote. I need to make that clear.
I think there's no guarantee that the deferral is going to be agreed, because that's predetermining the vote on the deferral. So, okay, if you understand me, sister.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, you could withdraw. That could come in. You could put it back.
It's my rationale. So I think let's go to the vote.
I'm sorry, I think that is becoming slightly confusing. It may just be me, but I just want to be absolutely clear where we are on that now. So it is very clear to everybody. Yep.
So the position,
Councillor Adcock, we're just coming to that conclusion across the bench.
just to sum up where we are. So Councillor Brown is proceeding with his motion, which he's entitled to do. Councillor Atherton has not withdrawn his seconding of that motion, so that remains. What happens now is the planning officers will pull together what that reason for refusal is. It takes a few moments to pull out the policies, and the planning officer, or rather the development manager, might need to just come back to the proposer to get some more information. Once that has been drawn up, the reason for refusal will be read out and will be voted upon, and it is up to members to then vote on that motion.
Yes, I would.
Can I just say that Councillor Holmes, point of order?
I thought I was seconding, but it doesn't matter at all. But I was going to bring something into this, which I felt had not been looked at enough. This business of the Councillor Sharp said, because long time ago there would be drains. They are blackthorn drains, and there's pot drains. That is what used to happen on that land. It had to, because it's clay land. Some of it'd be clay land, and that's how they grew the crops. So when you're putting those rods down, you will be breaking all those. So then I would have liked to have actually gone further with this, so that it would be seen to be done properly. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to second this. I don't feel that the applicant has actually done what it's not good to me, because it's supposed to be 100-year flood. It isn't now, is it? It floods every year.
Can I just say, we need to debate the motion.
I do understand that, but this is what I was going to say.
Yeah, can we debate the motion?
Yeah.
Can we debate the motion? I'm more than happy to hear that. Yes, Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much, Chair. The list of numbers of the neighbourhood plan, there's a list of policies that have been neighbourhood plan policies that have been included by the planning officer in assessing and weighing up the worth of this application, and they're on page 35, and I've had a chance to look at those before I came tonight. Right? Is there any that's been quoted that's not on that list? I would be interested in that. That's just a comment of saying.
Okay, so before we proceed any further with the meeting, I am going to need some clarification, please. So, Councillor Brown, you have motioned a refusal. I'm happy that I have the correct list of policies that you've referenced in regards to the local plan, the neighbourhood plan, and the objectives of the neighbourhood plan. What I'm not clear on is the reasons for the refusal. I think there was a mention of impact on landscape, but I didn't get anything that kind of I can help you structure a reason for.
The settlement character. And so I came up with 3, so with the settlement character, and what Councillor Atherton will do is he'll come in with the neighbourhood plan reasons. You okay with that, Ian? Yeah.
Thanks, Ronan. Basically, it's the fact that National England consider the historic character of the area to be at risk, and this proposal does nothing to enhance the character or lessen the risk, and therefore is, in my opinion at least, is in contravention of the policies in the Somerby local plan that I stated.
Again, a point of clarification. Can I just check? Natural England, do you mean?
Natural England, yeah. What did I say? National England. Yeah, my apologies.
Councillor Gordon. Well,
Yeah, sorry, this is just going back a bit to Elaine's comment, the last comment she made. I understand that from the officer, the council officer, that drains, if there are drains in that field, there is equipment that can be used to see if there is drains underneath, if there are drains. So I just thought I'd just bring that up, because if it comes to it, if we can do that, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Sorry, councillors, I'm really not being difficult here. Max has just pointed out to me within the report, the comments of Natural England 9.1.15 of the report are actually in support of the application.
In our view, we disagree with that. We have a different viewpoint.
can I just say, if you'd like to take a short pause, I know I would, because I need to clear my head a little. I'm going to be the first to admit it. Please do.
So while we do that then, Chair, I'm cognizant of the time at 8:30 and with another one to go through, do we need to think about a potential extension of the meeting deadline?
It's already crossed my mind, Councillor Atherton, you can imagine, and we'll do it just before the 9 o'clock threshold.
We've just been advised that the camera system actually needs to be reset at this point. So, Chair, it may be an appropriate point to take an adjournment. That ensures that the meeting remains online whilst that happens. So that may be an appropriate time.
We'll have an adjournment. We'll reset the cameras and we'll reset us ourselves. Thank you very much. And how long will it take for the, 5 minutes? 5 minutes? We'll have a 5-minute break. Thank you. Thank you. Can I call you back to your seats, please? That's very kind. Thank you very much. Right. Shall I hand over to Louise, who will lead us through what we're to do now?
Thank you, Chair. And again, apologies if I've not got this absolutely spot on, but I've taken it from what I've gleaned from yourselves. So the application puts the character of the historical area at risk, and this is based on OBJ 6, 7, 8, 11, 13 of the Neighbourhood Plan, Policy ENV 2, Policy ENV 7, Policy ENV 8, Policy ENV 13, and that was the final policy. So the only wording I have there to accompany those policies is the application puts the character of the historical area at risk.
Local plan EN 6.1. Did you read that out? Didn't hear that.
Melton Local Plan EN 6.1. Again, so the only supporting wording that I have for those policies is the application puts the character of the historical area at risk.
And has an adverse impact on the local environment.
And has an adverse impact on the local environment.
Yeah.
Could I tease more as to what that adverse impact is on the local environment, or what specifically in the local environment the harm is caused to?
Yeah, the visual impact from the siting of the solar panels on the site itself to the neighbouring properties and the public.
So again, and has an adverse impact on the visual impact of the local area. Okay, thank you. So the application puts the character of the historical area at risk and has an adverse visual impact on the local area, and that's supported by that list of objectives and policies from the neighbourhood plan that I read out and Melton Local Plan EN 6.1. Have I sufficiently captured everything there?
Yeah, that's the points we made. Yeah, that's what we'd like to go on.
We're just discussing amongst ourselves here that we really ought to take a vote on whether we're going to go past the 3 hour mark. So can we do that?
So yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, in accordance with part 5.1 of the meeting general procedure rules, as you're well aware, the meeting can only last for 3 hours unless there is a vote and a motion to go past that point. Rule 15.11G allows a vote on that to be put whilst another motion is under debate, because it is a procedural motion.
Can I put a motion forward that we go past the 3-hour mark. Can I have a show of hands, please, for that? Yep. What motion would it be?
Approach. So before we take the vote, we just need a motion before we can do that. So motions go beyond the 3-hour mark. That then needs to be seconded, then needs to be voted upon.
I'll put a motion forward that we go past the 3-hour mark in accordance with the general rules. Could I have a seconder for that? Or proposer, seconder? Thank you. Have a show of hands. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Votes carried. We'll proceed past 9 o'clock. Can I just say at this point, if we're going to go past 9 o'clock, whether to bring in we do have another application to hear. There may be people within the audience that are waiting to hear that application. It's unlikely we shall hear that application tonight. I just thought I'd make that point, because if we don't hear it now, it is get on for 9 o'clock, could be another half hour, an hour, and I don't think members will want to proceed past that point. Yeah, okay. But what we'll do is we'll carry on and see where we get to with regards to the current application. Thank you. Councillor Pritchett.
Yeah, in progressing this, EN6 in the local plan is the parent section paragraph for ENV7 in the neighbourhood plan. Is it also the parent paragraph for all the other neighbourhood plan references that have been quoted?
That's our learned friend on the right.
Yeah. You always need the parent paragraph.
A neighbourhood plan, and of course, in this case, the neighbourhood plan was made, as we say, adopted more recently than the local plan, is a document that stands alone in its own right. It's not necessary for it to hang off policies in the local plan. The neighbourhood plan is a development plan document, and it carries weight as a material planning consideration in its own right.
I'm just giving Louise more time to realise, having sat through this before, how difficult it is to pull this together on the hoof, and we shouldn't underestimate the task. Just to buy more time, if you just bear with me, just to say where we're going to go to next, I believe, having spoken to my colleagues here, that we will, when the motion is fully formed, we'll read out the motion. But I do think it's incumbent upon us to take some planning advice on the motion, and not only planning advice but some legal advice, just so everyone's absolutely aware of where we're going to and the potential implications of what we're about to vote upon. Is that okay? It didn't make any difference. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you, Chair. So, the application puts the character of the historical area at risk and has an adverse visual impact on the local area. This goes against Objective 6, 7, 8, 11 and 13 of the Somerby Neighbourhood Plan, along with policy EN2, protection of sites and features of environmental significance, policy ENV7, settlement character, policy ENV8, local landscape character areas, and policy EN6 of the Melton local plan. Can you confirm that that is everything all reported correctly?
So you've missed off ENV 13 and 15 from the Somerby local plan, Louise.
We're taking that to, we'd like to read the motion out again, please, Louise, just so absolutely clear. Thank you.
The application puts the character of the historical area at risk and has an adverse visual impact on the local area. This goes against Somerby Neighbourhood Plan Objectives 6, 7, 8, 11, 13, along with policies ENV2, ENV7, ENV8, ENV13 and ENV15 of the Somerby Neighbourhood Plan, along with Melton Local Plan Policy EN6.
Thank you. You've all read that. Could I have some planning advice on where we seem to be with that motion and the strength of that motion, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If the council were to issue a refusal of this application, I think we would need to be assured that we stood at least a reasonable chance of being able to defend an appeal, because of course, if a refusal is indefensible, then the council would be at great risk of significant costs being awarded at appeal for unreasonable behaviour. And I think planning officers' concerns about the wording of the reason that's been put forward is that it does seem to be unfocused, rather confused, and unsubstantiated. It does seem to be conflating and confusing a number of distinct areas and muddling them together. For example, the reference to historical character of the area, it's not quite clear from that whether we're talking about historical in the sense of being worried about harm to heritage assets or to archaeology, or are we talking in fact about the historic field patterns and the history of the area for agriculture? It's not quite clear which we're talking about here. I think probably what members had in mind is the latter. And if we are talking about harm to the character of the area, we just need to be mindful of what harm is it that we're talking about. I mean, for example, if we're talking about long established field patterns, well, there would be no harm to those, in fact, and this is something that's set out in my report. In fact, on the contrary, not only would there be no harm because no fields would be interfered with in terms of having hedgerows removed, but in fact, some gaps in those hedgerows and some areas where there would historically have been hedgerows are proposed to be reintroduced. So an appellant might argue that far from interfering with the historic character of the field patterns, they're actually proposing to strengthen and restore them, which would be a worry if we were to try to defend the case of appeal. Visual impact was mentioned in the wording. This is something that we've been discussing this evening. It's something that's mentioned in the report, and I think all parties are agreed that there would be some landscape harm. But just something to bear in mind is that both the appellant's landscape consultants and indeed our own landscape consultant who reviewed it were, although they disagreed about a number of things, were generally in agreement that it's localized harm to the landscape, generally within a 2-kilometre range. So when we talk about harm to the local area, what exactly do we mean? What are we talking about when we talk about harm to the local area? It's not clear from that wording. And something else that I think we need to address, which is not currently in that wording, is the weighting that's to be given to these various harms that we're alleging, and how those weightings compare with the positive weightings for the benefits that we discussed earlier. Because of course, most proposed developments contravene a policy to some extent, and what we have to do as a planning authority is to reach a balancing decision where there is harm or contravention of a policy. Is that outweighed by benefits and respects in which other policies are complied with? So that seems to be lacking, and I do worry that we would be in a weak position if we were to try to defend a refusal along the lines that have been suggested.
Thank you. On that point, that's a nice segue into some legal advice, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. And I follow on from the advice I gave earlier. So I'm not a planning officer. I'm not giving technical planning advice. The advice I give now is based upon the advice that the planning officer has given and the decision making that follows. It's an established principle that the planning committee must give reasons for their decision where they are going against officer recommendation. Clearly, when the officer recommendation is followed, those decisions are set out in the reports, and that is why those decisions have to be substantiated now. Members have heard what the technical advice is from the planning officer, and it is apparent that his view, in his professional opinion, is that this appears to be a weak reason for refusal, and spoke about the reason being unfocused, confused, and unsubstantiated. The harm that is being suggested is not clearly identified, and there is no planning balance or weighting given, and that's the advice I gave earlier, where that needs to be considered. I would add that the NPPF does give significant weight to the benefits associated with renewable and low carbon energy generation and the proposal's contribution to a net zero future. That is set out in the NPPF, and that has to be a starting point that cannot be moved away from at the consideration of that balancing exercise. As such, it is difficult for me to therefore say at this point that this is a robust and defendable position. If the matter is appealed and an inspector finds that the council acted unreasonably in coming to that decision, the council is at a significant risk of costs being awarded against it. Costs of an application like this are likely to be very substantial, and that warning has to be given. As members said earlier, costs are not a material planning consideration, but they have to be considered when considering how robust and defendable a decision is.
Thank you. Thank you both. I'm prepared to take some limited debate on this. So over to Councillor Arnott.
Well, Chair, I don't like to use this phrase often, but I did tell you so, didn't I? We must make, never mind the appeal and the risk of money, it's important that we get this right, whichever way we go, so that
the essence is to get the wording right and the reasoning correct so that it is robust and will stand up and will be credible. So I go back to my earlier proposition that the only way we can do it at 9:05 tonight is to defer this and give it ourselves some time to get the wording right, to make, because if, as most of us feel, actually we want to reject this application, let's get it right and make certain it stands up, because we won't be doing the objectors any justice whatsoever if we put a spatchcock decision through and it fails. We're not helping them, are we? So let's get it right and let's defer this bit of it. All I'm saying is let's give members a chance when they're a little less tired and can focus on the data to get the brief correct, and then we stand a fair chance of winning and not losing. Never mind the money, we want to get the result.
I totally agree with the money. The money should not enter into our thinking. But over to Councillor.
Obviously, we have to take on the advice of what the solicitor said, so completely respect that. We're not here to be unreasonable whatsoever. It's about taking a view on this, Mr. Pickwell. So don't be thinking that we're being awkward or anything like that, please. If the advice is that there's significant risk, I've just spoken to my colleague here. We're willing to give way and withdraw the motion for now, and let it be debated. And if they want to defer and come back, so be it. But you are putting out there your centres that there's going to be significant costs if we lose, and very strong words there about our ability on this committee from the officer as well, which I do take a little bit of umbrage with. I just want to put that on the record, because we're not being unreasonable. We've never been unreasonable, etc. And that's not what is coming across there about our character, etc. Here, I've never been like that there. So I'll deal with that outside of this meeting. I'm deeply unhappy with that, as so is my colleague. So we're happy to withdraw. There's obviously a process to do that. Please advise us to do so.
Thank you for that, Councillor Brown, and thank you, Councillor Atherton, who is going to speak now.
And just to say, I agree with withdrawing the motion in favour of a motion to defer.
Thank you. What, just Bridget?
Thank you, Chair. In support of colleagues calling for a deferment, I've just revisited the neighbourhood plan, ENV2, page 50, the settlement carried at page 69, and ENV8, local landscape, page 71. Now, within those lengthy paragraphs, there's long lists of actually areas that are protected and some others that may not be within those paragraphs. So in actual fact, looking at it to get it refined would be better. And I would say to anybody who would have read through those paragraphs prior to the meeting and had formed and got clued up on them, they could be accused of turning up and being predetermined. So I think the people who have worked on it tonight have actually got a point at revisiting the detail of this to see if it's got if it's got legs.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I go back to my original when I asked the planning officer, because I have looked, and I did look at all the applications that have gone in and pending, etc. Well, does it make a difference that this is another one, and how much generation we need in this area and the whole of of England? I'm asking that point because surely that makes a difference to this application. If we don't need any more in this area, does that not make a difference?
I think this is something that was touched on earlier in the debate, and I think we've moved beyond the debate, haven't we?
Can I just say we are now in a position where we need to do something. I shall take one more, and that is Councillor Gordon, and then I shall wind it up.
If this does go to deferral, sorry, what I was thinking of, one of the reasons could be that we could try and find out if there are any drains under that the fields. So I thought, like with the officers saying there is equipment to do that, so that could be part of the reason as well.
I don't think that would be a substantive reason, Councillor Gordon. I think I take your point, and I think that comes later in the piece. Should in the final analysis it be approved? What I'm looking for now is obviously there is a motion or a proposer for a deferral. But what I would like to say before we get to that issue, what I've seen around the table is some common sense thinking. No one's being unreasonable. No one is being obstructive. This has been a good, wholesome debate, and I thank everyone around the table for it. I don't think that I will be absolutely honest. I don't think that I could have supported it, the motion as it stood, because I'm not confident in the decision that I would be making, and I wouldn't do that. So I think we need to move on and have a motion for and reasons for deferment. So can I ask someone to produce that for me, please? Councillor Arnott.
I propose that we defer so that greater clarity can be brought to bear on the reasons for either refusal or acceptance, and that the specific references to the various policies, both local plan and neighbourhood plan, can be set out for all of us to understand the reasons why we're objecting or supporting the application.
That sounds sufficient unto the day. I don't know. Yeah.
So just to confirm what that would look like. So obviously the report as it stands gives you the officer's professional opinion of why he thinks it should be approved. I think what you're asking for is substantiated reasons and detail based on the previous motion that was withdrawn, with the officer's professional opinion in more detail on each of those and how the policies may or may not be applicable in their professional view in a subsequent report.
And obviously, from what you said, linking it with the previous motion, that implies, does it not, that the proposer and seconder of that motion will have a discussion with the officers about what they're meaning, or what they're trying to attach to the meaning? Because you obviously don't want the whole committee deciding that, do you?
I'm happy for Tom to come back in a moment on that particular point. I think I'm trying to help members. Okay, so we was in a position where there was a motion on the table to refuse. People weren't comfortable with that. Okay, the officer recommendation from Max's report was approved. Members aren't comfortable with that. Okay, fine. So what is it that's missing from you being able to say yes or no this evening? What detail, what clarification, what are the specifics that you need to be able to say, yep, I'm going to agree, or no, I'm going to refuse? What is that missing link? Because that would inevitably be your reason for deferral, and that would provide us as officers the clarification to go and get that information for you. Does that help in your thought process?
In my opinion, the missing link is that while we've had the list of policies set out, we haven't had the detailed harms that link to the specific policies. we've only got a slight hint. So it would give us a chance to specify those harms and for every member to be able to read it rather than listen to it. Help me.
The difficulty you would have is that members wouldn't be able to take part in such a process because they wouldn't be able to come back to the meeting without being predetermined. So what we can do is officers can go away on a specific task. They can find you information and get you a plan, for example. What they wouldn't be able to do is work with members on that because that would put those members as being predetermined. So it needs to be very specific instructions now as to what's being required. So the suggestion was that an officer could give you an opinion on how those policies relate to what has already been said in greater detail. That's unlikely to change much from the advice you've already received, unless you can give a further direction as to explicitly what you would want.
Can we listen to Councillor Pritchett on this? His words of wisdom.
Yes, just a degree of objectivity. Isn't the request that the named neighbourhood plan policies can be revisited line by line in detail by members and to be considered against the documents, the portal and the report, to be better informed to make a decision?
I like as chair. Can I just give a chair's view? I like as chair to let the debate flow and not let too much influence by the chair. What I would like to see is that if I was going to go away and do this on by myself, and I would anyway, if there's a deferral, is I would get all the policies that's listed and then look at them and look at the harm and the benefit that those policies bring to this particular application. And if those areas that they're talking about and those policies we're talking about, if they influence greatly or to what degree, I would come and argue that out, that it's either no, they don't influence because they are not substantive points, or yes, they are very substantial and need to take more consequence. And I would weigh that in the balance. Is that strong enough for us to go out on a refusal, or is that strong enough to approve it? And that's all that I would be asking for. And I can do that by myself. I don't need an officer to sit with me to do that. I'm more than capable, and I would have thought that's what we're looking for, is it not, councillors? So can we proceed on that basis? Is that possible? Yeah. So can we frame something around that? I'm sorry to give a chair's view, but I do try to be even-handed.
Chair, you've been en rapport as always in summarising the position and guiding us to the right conclusion. You couldn't have put it better. And mine's
the poor old chair. Yeah,
I'll have a double. All right.
Yeah, I told that. Yeah, so I shall speak to Councillor Thwaites when he returns from his holidays. In fact, what I've said is the motion, as far as I've been told. And can we put that? Or
I'm happy to accept those words into my motion.
Then please do. Can we have a seconder for that particular motion with those words imported?
Yes.
Oh, that is indeed an honour. Thank you. So can we vote upon that motion? All those in favour of a deferment on that basis, would they please raise their hands? Is that halfway up? Thank you. And 9. Thank you. All those against? 1 abstention. No. Thank you.
Could I have my vote recorded, please?
Please do. That's fine. I do. It's never a committee meeting unless we have a vote recorded, I don't think. Thank you very much for that. So the vote, so that is carried. Thank you very much for that. could I then turn to, is it possible now to turn to the vexed question of side of the next application? And in fact, I think you'll find, Councillor Adcock, that we're all going to withdraw. So because I don't think it's possible to hear this application and give it just desserts that we need to. Okay, we have a proposal here that we may squeeze it in. If anyone wants to, so would you withdraw, Councillor? And would you withdraw, Holmes? We are now going to go on to the next application. I would imagine that most people that are sat out there in front of me would like to withdraw from the room. If that's okay, please do. But we will proceed and try to fit it in, just for the sake of. You're welcome. So can I proceed on the next item on the agenda, which is the last item on the agenda, apart from urgent business? This is the application 23/00287 REM Salisbury Farm, Nottingham Road, Melton. Can I ask the planning officer belatedly to give us a view on the application? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. A few preliminary matters, first of all, in relation to the conditions mainly. Paragraph 12.2 of the report relates to parking and turning facilities to be implemented in accordance with the planning layout drawing. This planning layout drawing has been revised, and the local highway authority are happy to amend the condition to capture the revision H of that drawing. Similarly, at 12.3, amend the condition to read as written there: prior to first use of the primary school, vehicle visibility displays as 2.4 metres by 25 metres shall be provided at the school access gate and shall be thereafter be maintained. And again, similarly at paragraph 12.3.1, changes to the condition as listed there. Paragraph 12.4, sorry, I think I was saying 2 instead of 12.3. Sorry, apologies, it's late. 12.4, again, amend the condition with regards to the play area as set out there. We also received late comments on the 20th of August from a neighbouring residence. However, no new matters were raised which are not addressed within the report. Next slide, please. So as you see, we have the application for reserve matters in relation to the appearance, layout, scale and landscaping and discharge of the conditions listed there. Next slide, please. So this relates to an outline consent permitted in December 2020 for the demolition of all existing buildings and structures and the erection of up to 290 dwellings, a local centre for retail purposes, class A1 to A5, and a business use building, primary school, open space and associated infrastructure. All matters were reserved except for access. Next slide, please. The development is proposed in 4 phases. As you can see set out there, phase 1 relates to the delivery of the MMDR. This is under construction and is due for completion in this part in September. Phase 2 would be the residential dwellings, delivery of the residential dwellings, which we're considering today. Phase 3, the local centre. The application references below. This application is currently pending consideration, and phase 4, delivery of the primary school. Next slide, please. So the local centre and the primary school are secured within the conditions and Section 106 agreement. Condition 10 of the outline consent relates to the local centre, which comprises of the areas specified and shall be ready for occupation and actively marketed prior to first occupation of the 200th dwelling on the site. The Section 106 agreement also secures the transfer of the school land to the county council prior to first occupation of 10% of the dwellings, or 24 months from the date of the first reserved matters application approval. The layout follows a similar layout to the outline consent. The topography of the site is very challenging. There's a spine road throughout the site which connects the local centre at the primary school, that's suitable for a bus route, and it links to the adjacent site to the north. The secondary roads lead off the spine road and lead on to the tertiary roads to the periphery of the site. Next slide, please. This slide demonstrates the dispersal of the affordable housing throughout the site. As you can see there, they wouldn't be clustered in one area, they would be dispersed throughout the site. Next slide, please. Again, this slide demonstrates the challenging topography of the site. Next slide, please. So the appearance, scale and landscaping are dictated by the topography, the retained hedgerows throughout the site, around the periphery and throughout the site, and the hierarchy of the roads, which also is dictated by the topography. There is a limited material palette proposed throughout the development, but this reinforces the road hierarchy. Interest is added to the street scene by the variety of house types, which also successfully navigate the topography of the site. Next slide, please. So, as mentioned, the landscaping retains many of the existing hedgerows on the perimeter and throughout the site. It introduces wetlands, play space, wildflowering plants and ornamental planting between the dwellings. The space is all publicly accessible as secured through the 106 agreement. The proposals retain the public right-of-way through the site, which would be realigned to the northern boundary to allow for the dwellings, as you can see in the top right-hand corner of the slide. Condition 17 restricts occupation until the public right-of-way footpath has been surfaced and provided. And condition 8 of the outline consent requires details to be submitted for approval of the construction of the open space, including equipment to be provided in the play areas and a timetable for the provision of this. Next slide, please. So in summary, the proposals follow the principles of the Melton North Sustainable Neighbourhood Master Plan. It delivers 290 dwellings of a variety of tenure and a housing and acceptable housing mix. It delivers 51 affordable homes. The development retains existing hedgerows and introduces new planting, publicly accessible green corridors to improve walking, cycling, and the north-south connectivity to adjacent developments, and Melton Mowbray. It creates a strong sense of place it integrates well with the surrounding urban area and adjacent developments. So the recommendation is that the application is approved, subject to the conditions set out in section 12 of the report and the updated conditions reported earlier at paragraphs 12.2, 12.3, 12.3.1 and 12.4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Now, I just want to reiterate that we don't want, I know it's late in the day, but this deserves a good hearing. We need to be diligent in what we're doing. I'm sure members will be. So we just need to make certain that we give this a fair hearing as it deserves to be. And can I ask a question? Now I need to ask questions of the planning officer. Ian, please.
Yeah, I'm sure you did mention it. Provision of the school, that's outside this application, and from memory, it's covered by condition in the original outline application. What guarantee do we have other than we'll, or the applicant will put section 106 monies into the coffers? What guarantee do we have that the school will be built in the same time frame as the housing estate, if any?
Thank you, Councillor. As you say, it is secured in the 106 agreement. It's to be transferred, the school site is to be transferred to the county council prior to first occupation of 10% of the dwellings or within 24 months from the date of the first reserve matters approval. The developer will provide all the infrastructure and all the services up to and within the site for connection. So as far as delivering it goes, everything is provided to make that feasible. Obviously, whether the timing of that we cannot confirm.
Just add a word, but with the, in fact, this has been brought up, this same issue has been brought up on a number of occasions, not just within the committee, but with outside the committee, with planning officers. I've investigated it, and there's no way we can force any agreement on LCC to build the school. I'm afraid it is a matter of pressure and being diligent in ensuring that it is built. I think I'm right in that, Louise.
Yes, so you are correct, Chair. It falls out the remit of tonight's consideration. It falls out the remit of the planning committee. What I can probably give you some comfort in is we know as officers the importance of this school to members of this council. We know the discussions that are ongoing, again, outside of planning with the county council collectively. And I'm sure that this is also very important for themselves. So should permission be granted this evening, members can rest assured that there will be discussions between MBC and LCC outside of the planning and the planning committee environment.
Thank you, Louise. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, I know this is outside because it's back to the school again, but it's just something I think that is important, and especially for some of the schools in Melton as well. This could, go on from there. Now, obviously, it says on here on 848 on page 151 on the computer, proposals have been amended to maximise the staff parking and school drop-off pick-up accommodated within the school site, which are acceptable in principle. So therefore, I'm thinking, okay, so there's no parking of school traffic on the roads leading to the school. However, right, assuming the cars and buses can enter and leave the school site with a turning point and traffic can pass each other at the school entrance, Now, the reasons why I'm saying this, and I know this is to do with LCC, but this is because there are problems with parking of cars concerning dropping off and picking off the school children on the roads.
Can I just ask Councillor Good, is a question framed in this?
No, it's just carrying on with the school, because I thought it'd be
No,
better
no,
to
no,
bring this up now.
No, I think this is part of a debate. If it's not a question.
Oh, right, I'll bring it up later.
Can you leave it?
Yeah, of course I can. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, just one question. Timescale of like building the houses. It seems like I did read somewhere and that it could be between 1 and 5 years to have so many houses built. Is that correct?
Can you point out the relevant paragraph? Sorry. Just not sure where that.
There was something was said that previously that houses will start commence within a year, and then it could take up to I think it was 4 years. Does that mean that is it one house built in 1 year and then 289 built in the 4th year? It's just wondered what sort of timescale we're looking at, because that's 5 years, then application to build a school with the money with 106 and stuff like that, everything increases, and it's just the timings that were doing me with if a school needs to be built, it needs to be built quick, not just in 5 years' time when they release it.
I think you're referring to some information which may have formed one of the briefings, and unfortunately we don't have the agent registered to speak this evening. What I can confirm is that the recommendations within the outline planning permission that has been granted previously had the planning conditions and the Section 106 agreement, which provides triggers for the various phases to come together at their points, and Chire has also included relevant planning conditions for this application to come forward as well. In planning, it's very difficult in development management, it's very difficult to project and give timings for phases to come forward, that they have the conditions with the reassurance that they will come forward at a certain point and they have to start at a certain point. Anything in terms of monitoring and completion, we would do report annually anyway, and may be able to provide you the information then, but it's not something we'll have now, I'm afraid.
Okay, happy with that. Thank you. Anyone else want to pose a question, Don?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comprehensive report and the supplementary graphics. On your picture of the site, can you show me how the children will, by foot, arrive at the Fernley School, secondary school, please?
Could you bring up the slide of the landscaping plan, please? 10, I think. Thank you. So there is the public right of way, which provides the north-south connectivity from the adjacent estate as well, residential estate, and also from the north, the new estate to the north, and within this estate. There would be the spine roads and the secondary streets do lead to the open space, which then, although not a formal connection, could where people could access the public right of way.
So there isn't a footpath?
Currently, no, there isn't a formalised footpath, but it is something that potentially.
I'd have expected that to have been picked up by now, that there was a proper, they wouldn't have to trudge across grass.
Sorry, no, there is a footpath from the existing public right of way to the to the actual school gate. So if you look south of the second arrow, where the hedge cuts across, there is a footpath there that goes to just to the right of the public right of way. It doesn't extend to the left to within the road. It's not formalised.
Tarmac or grass?
It will be surfaced, and that's one of the conditions.
Thank you for that. That's easy to tool for myself. Any more questions, or please feel free. No, we have no speakers or objectors or people for it. So can I just move on to debate, please? Thank you. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, here we go again. Right, it's on page 151 on the laptops and it's 848. The proposals have been amended to maximise the staff parking and school drop-off pick-up accommodated within the school site, which are acceptable in principle. Now, I know that this school is down to the LCC, I know that, but because of the problems that we've got with schools in Melton, I think this was a good thing to bring up. So perhaps we can pass this on. Now, therefore, I put no parking of school traffic on the roads leading to the school. That's what I'm assuming from this from this sentence on this report. Now, assuming that cars and buses can enter and leave the school site with a turning point and traffic can pass each other at the school entrance. Now, that would be brilliant if that could happen. And if this is not the case, then if you could pass this on to LCC. Now, this is because there are problems with parking of cars concerning dropping off and picking off school children on the roads to schools such as Longfield School and the front and rear areas of the convent school on Dolby Road, besides others. Roads are congested with cars around the start and end times of school terms, and we're getting no end of complaints from residents in these areas, but there's nothing we can do much about it. Now, some of these parents, sometimes they can park up to half an hour or so before, so they can get a good parking space near to the school. So if we could pass this on to Leicester County Council, because that would be brilliant if we could do something like that, because of the problems we've got. We'll only get the complaints, if it goes through on this application. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else want to enter into a debate to discuss the Councillor Brown?
I think we probably all read and went through this report in detail, and I think you are quite restricted what we can do in Melton Mowbray with regards to the local plan, etc., and the pressures on funding for the road in the section 106, and the county council have got their own financial pressures as well. So we need to recognise that, whether you like it or not. That's the stark reality of things, and we have the amount of affordable housing that's in there that's adequate, and again that's due to the previous decisions that this council made, etc. So I think based on that there, I'd be happy to propose the recommendations that's set out by the officers here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can I just bring in Councillor Ornott just to, he did indicate.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted to second that as I commence my comments. I think on the whole, by the standards of today, it's a good layout. It ticks all the boxes. It's a pity that we haven't been able to advance to the point at which solar panels are indeed placed on roofs of houses, but we haven't quite got there. I did get an email today or a text message, somebody called Nigel, who did ask me if we could have a flagpole in the middle of the estate to put the Union Jack up at every possibility. But I'll put that on one side. But Councillor Pritchett did make a comment the other day, which I thought was really valid. It was about the disposition of smaller play areas across the estate, so that parents can take very little children a short distance to a play area. And I am disappointed that isn't a bit more visible. And if anyone's listening and can do something about that, that would be helpful, because it's most important that families and children can play safely and take part in neighbourly things without having to tramp to a larger park some yards distance. But on the whole, pretty good.
Thank you. I did notice that Ian Athmore.
Just a quick comment, really, and I'd formally like to thank the developer, even though they're not here tonight, because they've took notice of comments made by ward councillors and spread out the affordable housing. They're not all lumped together, and I think they should be commended for that. And it's something that we should look to do in future applications of this size too.
Thank you for that, Councillor Patterson. Any more wants to engage in debate on this, or shall I move to recommendation? Okay. I've got a proposer and I've got a seconder. Can I have a show of hands, please, for those in favour? Okay, those against? Unanimous. Thank you very much. This is carried. Thank you very much. And the meeting is closed. And it's closed at 21:47 according to my watch.